And I always tell them, I go, you're going through the ringer right now. I'm putting you through what's called the hornet's nest. Every single day, we're going to be attacking different areas of your body. We're going to be opening up areas that your body is telling me need attention. And that's kind of like the method to the madness right there. And that's because muscles tell a story. Like I was explaining to you guys throughout the week is that fascia has one rule. When you breathe, you have to move. A lot of tension in there. I've helped people reduce the prescription of their eyeglasses by working on muscles and fascia in the head, neck, and shoulders. You never see children 2, 3, 4 years old walking around in pain.
Can you even get your shoulders?
No. Hurt myself.
Oh, careful.
Oh, there we go.
Your face is getting red.
Yeah, bro.
I'm gonna choke myself out.
For some reason, information like this is being suppressed. Okay, and we've known Andrew Taylor, still the godfather of osteopathy. 1899, he knew that fascia was the key to everything. And it's just kind of like, wait a minute, what? So I find something that can revolutionize and change the world, but it's too mystical.
What about something like sciatica?
I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've only seen 2 cases of real sciatica.
Because people have anecdotes, it's crazy how people are so quick to just kick away that anecdote and say it's a placebo or nothing's really happening.
When you're looking for stuff in the body that may be adhered to, it's anything lumpy, bumpy, okay, anything tight, tender, sore. Obviously, don't go and roll on your gonads, okay? Something like,
why does this hurt so much?
This hurts and there's a bump, don't do that.
Power Project family, how's it going? Now, I want to talk to you guys about Within You supplements. This is Mark's supplement line. And the amazing thing is Mark used to be 330 pounds. He was a fat guy. So obviously this stuff tastes really damn good. But another cool thing about Within You supplements is that none of these products are white labeled. Now, what a lot of people do when they come out with their own supplement lines is they do something called white labeling. And white labeling, all that means is there's a supplement that's already out there. They take off the tag of that supplement, they put their name on it, and now it's their supplement line. Quite literally, there's nothing else like Within You supplements out there because Mark formulated these supplements with other individuals that he knows within the industry, like Joel Green, who we've had on this podcast. So you guys should check out Within You. We have amazing whey protein, electrolyte supplements. We have fasting gum and many other things on the website. Andrew, how can they check it out?
Yes, that's over at markbellslingshot.com. And at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject10 to save 10% off your entire order. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I'm ready.
All right, let's roll.
Hey, SpongeBob, let's go.
All right. Well, my body's been getting put through the ringer over here by our boy Chris, doing a bunch of body work on me. Have you done that much work on somebody in that short a period of time like you're doing on me and my brother?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been people that come to see me, obviously, in South Florida, and they'll come 5-7 days at a time. And I got to get as much work as I can done with them in that specified period of time. And I always tell them, I go, you're going through the ringer right now. I'm putting you through what's called the hornet's nest. Every single day, we're going to be attacking different areas of your body. We're going to be opening up areas that your body is telling me need attention. And that's kind of like the method to the madness right there. And that's because muscles tell a story. So you got to know what you're trying to feel. And then you also got to know what you're trying to figure out. And obviously with you and Chris, it's a playground in there. It's a treasure chest.
A lot of things to try to figure out, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been feeling kind of beat up is like not the right term really. Cause normally like if I would feel beat up from a workout, that would have a negative impact on succeeding workouts. But this is more like almost like a little bit of like stiffness and almost just like fatigue. And so when I go to sleep, I'm sleeping a lot better. It feels like I'm sleeping a lot deeper. I haven't like tracked it or tested or anything like that. But normally like the allotted time I have for sleep is like 5-6 hours. But now I've been down for 8, 9, and even 10 hours over the last couple of days. And I think it's like, I don't think it's coincidental. On top of that, when I go to run and some of the stuff that I've been doing lately, I mean, there's been certain things in the gym that I go to do and I go, wow, I just didn't even know that was that sore. Like I went to do a back extension the other day, and you worked on my quad quite a bit, and I was like, whew, I forgot that he worked on my quad that much. That really hurts to try to do a back extension.
Sure.
There's been little stuff like that, but for the most part, performance has been better and better. I went out for a run, did a normal route that I always do, and I just timed it, and I was like, let me see kind of how this is going, because I want to kind of test it out and see, like, because I knew like I had some areas that were sore, but I'm like, well, maybe they're more free, maybe they're going to move better, maybe I'm going to be a little more optimal in my run. And sure enough, I chopped 2 minutes off, and then I was like, well, let me see when my luck runs out, so I'll do it the next day. And the next day I cut a minute off. So to cut off 3 minutes, I'm not very fast, I don't believe, at the moment anyway, but that's some significant progress on a route that I've been running for months, where I don't really think that, I don't think I was running it any faster more recently. So that was definitely a breakthrough.
Sure. And when we look at what your body's dealing with, all it comes down to is stress. Okay. The body is a stress machine. It will deal with stress all the way up until the day you die, and when you're not doing anything to mitigate that stress, it's an extra ounce on a particular piece of tissue, and then another extra ounce the next day, and then another extra ounce the next day. Okay, so you look at a guy of your stature squatting over 1,000 pounds, benching
854.
So we have close to a 1,900 pound total in just 2 lifts right there. Something that probably 99.9% of people in the world won't touch. Right? You've never had any true body work done. You might have had massages here and there, but nobody's getting rid of the adhesions the way that I was.
Not consistently, not
consistently.
Like that, no.
Sure. When we start to work the body and get rid of the stress, what is your body going to do? You're now able to sleep more, right? Because the body needs to regenerate, number one. And then number two is you are going to be able to be more efficient in your movement. Okay? I mean, that's just what it comes down to. And like I've talked to Chris and you and Nsima the entire time I was here, when you take stress out of the body, when you go to rest, now your body will be at rest. Where if you are super stressed out, a lot of people, I mean, even just your common everyday grocery bagger, right? Could be super stressed out from standing for 8 hours a day, especially, during COVID, you're wearing a mask, standing for 8 hours a day, bagging people's groceries, and everybody real particular about their groceries, right? I mean, this is just a bare minimum of life right here, okay? And you go home super stressed out, and you can only fall asleep for 5-6 hours, something like that. Or maybe you're in bed for 8 hours, but you're tossing and turning. You're awake for an hour here, you're awake for an hour there. All it is stress. Okay, every single day there's things that are trying to kill us, and it's even in the form of gravity as well. So that's what it comes down to.
We're going to be talking a lot about a lot of different things, especially fashion. We're going to get to that. But the importance of like breathing, when you were doing work on me and when you were talking to Mark and Chris and you were saying like, as I'm doing all these things, you need to be breathing through all of it, because like if you hold your breath, you're going to be super stiff. Can you talk to us about like some of the importance of correct breathing? Like we tape our mouth shut when we sleep so that we're breathing through our nose when we sleep. I read The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McEwen back in like 2017, and that changed the way I was breathing in sport, which made a big difference in the way that I perform. But it's something that I think that, people tackle all of these different things, diet, which is good to attack, your exercise, which is good to attack. But the one thing that you're doing every moment that you're alive, which is your breathing, people don't think too much about it. And they might be breathing like that through sleep, through activity, through work. And how is it affecting them?
When it comes to pain points in the body, our biggest movement dysfunction is breathing. The second one would be sitting. And while you're sitting, you're subsequently breathing in a really poor position, right? And that's not to say guys like me and us, right? We might be in that position for an hour or two, and then we're going to go and get after it in the gym. So we're extended, and now we're actually putting the body to use. So majority of people, they're going to be sitting and breathing in a dysfunctional manner, and that's going to create a lot of problems with them because they don't get up and then kind of correct it through exercise. Okay, so I recently just read James Nestor's book, Breathing the New Art, something like that. I can't remember the exact subtitle.
Yeah.
But
Wait, was it another book he wrote on breathing or the first one?
what's that?
Was it a second book he wrote on breathing or the very first one?
I think the first one is the one that I read.
Okay.
A new art to an old, or a new science to an old art,
Got it.
I believe it's called. And we learn a whole bunch of different things in there, but the biggest thing that we learn is that if we're breathing through our nose, we can change things like the shape of our face. We're going to change actually the biome of the nose, the bacteria that we have in there. We're going to warm the air, so greater nitric oxide production in the body. We're going to continuously stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, okay, which a lot of times people, even if you have a desk job, you're in fight or flight. Why? Deadlines, the stress of an office, the stress of your job, the stress of the commute, the stress of not eating well, the stress of not exercising, the stress of going home and wanting to kick the dog because you're frustrated with all those other things, right? So we're looking at breathing on a much larger scale in regards to health in the human body that I still don't understand why it has not gotten out there yet. Why everybody isn't like, okay, make sure the tongue rests at the top of the mouth, breathe through your nose, even when you're doing something like CrossFit. You know, I started, and I want to say the first 2 or 3 days, I was like, forget this, dude, this is too hard. It's just unrealistic to do it with something like CrossFit. Too much heavy breathing, can't be done. So I stopped for, I want to say 5 or 6 months. And then I was like, you know what? I read James Nestor's book, and I was like, obviously this is way more important than even I realized. So let me start doing it. And now any type of exercise that I'm doing, it doesn't matter if it's even just a long, slow walk with my wife and my daughter. Mouth is shut and I'm breathing through my nose. You know, if I'm doing high rep muscle ups, mouth is shut, breathing through the nose. If I'm on the echo bike for 30 minutes, mouth is shut, breathing through the nose. You know, and it took a while for my body to kind of adapt to that. But when it adapts, what we find is that one of the biggest pieces is your heart rate and your blood pressure actually stay much more in control as well. And he talked about one of those studies in the book where people would mouth breathe. These guys were experienced bikers, bicyclists, okay? And while they were doing this experiment, you either had to breathe through your mouth or breathe through your nose. And when these guys would redline, they would redline because their heart rate and their blood pressure got way too high. Where when you were breathing through your mouth, when you breathe through your nose, your blood pressure wouldn't and your heart rate wouldn't really redline. It would get to a specific point, and no matter how hard they pedaled, it would just kind of like stay there. So then it came down to conditioning, like how conditioned you would be. And I mean, obviously, I would tap out long before they would in such a case like that. But one of the biggest problems that we have is something as simple as just breathing properly. It's one of the easiest things that you can do in order to really just keep your body young, okay? And then also keep a lot of these movement faults from ruining other parts of your life, especially when you're sitting at a desk with your shoulders rounded, diaphragm is crammed up, okay? And your body is basically being told that you're never gonna be able to breathe deep, so don't even try. Right, and that creates a whole bunch of problems with our heart, our lungs, even the adrenal glands.
Just being mindful, I think, is a really important thing. So throughout the day, I always try to cue myself and just make sure, just like kind of check, like, why am I tight, or why am I so uptight, or why am I like in this weird position texting or eating? Why am I eating like this and like not like? Why don't I settle the fuck down for a second and oh yeah, I can breathe just fine in and out of my nose. When I've been running, it's been the same thing. I've been practicing that. Sometimes when I'm running a little harder or running a little faster, it's harder for me to maintain control of staying, just in and out of the nose the whole time. But what I would think would be very beneficial for a lot of people is if you're trying to make progress and you're trying to, at the same time, avoid injury, which is probably one of the best ways to make progress, is to simply just not get hurt. If you don't get hurt and you do something for a long time, you're probably going to make a lot of progress with it, unless you just absolutely stink for some reason. But if you breathe in and out of the nose, it's a nice governor on everything.
Sure.
Like if you only train in that state, in that frame, then your kettlebell snatches to your kettlebell swings to whatever the other movement was, you were doing burpees or something like that in between, it might be spread out a lot longer. Therefore, the intensity of the workout is brought down. But over time, that intensity can be brought up. Mm-hmm. And if you use the nose as a governor for all these things, maybe it's not all these things all the time. It doesn't have to be that hard of a rule, because we want to explore other aspects of what our body's capable of doing as well. But I think that that's very, very safe, from all the way from your heart health, all the way to the health of the tissues in your body, the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments. If you kind of kept that perspective for sprints, it might be really difficult, but it would lower the intensity of sprints. And if you're mindful of how you're recovering from it, then you would bring that intensity down to a level that you can handle in the beginning. And then it would be something that you can progress towards as you've been doing it for a while.
Sure. And like I was explaining to you guys throughout the week, is that fascia has one rule. When you breathe, you have to move. Okay. So there's nothing that will stop our breath, save for, getting the old concrete shoes by the mobsters and thrown into the ocean, right? Nothing is going to stop your breath. Your breath is going to go as long as you're alive. Okay, so when we breathe, the entire upper body is going to move with you. You breathe literally from your sacrum to the top of your skull. Okay, breathing is like one of the most incredible art forms that nobody is ever talking about. So when we're tight and our breathing is dysfunctional, both of those are very heavily correlated. Okay, so just by increasing the quality of your breath, I firmly believe that you can increase the quality or the health of your fascia as well at the same time. So with everything being super duper tight, when we were doing the fascial maneuvers, right, you notice that as I was telling you, okay, every deep breath that you take, when you exhale, I want you to try and twist a little bit more, okay? And that's what I call open you up from the inside out, okay? And then the table work, I'm opening you up from the outside in, all right? And that's one of the reasons why it makes it so effective, okay? But the work from opening you up from the inside out can only be done by you. And it can only be done with those fascial maneuvers where you're compressing the body, you're getting into these rotational compresses, okay? And then when you breathe, your fascia only has one master, and that's the breath. When you breathe, it has to move. So you get into this really tight rotational compress, you breathe, and fascia's like, oh crap, I need to open up more space because I got adhesions here, I got adhesions there.
It's crazy how much more I was moving. Like you would say like, hey, twist your body this way and turn your head that way. And I'm like I can barely move.
Yeah.
And then I breathe, and you give me like a gentle assistance into these different movements. And it's crazy the amount of movement you get.
Yeah. And the first time that we did Totally Twisted with you, I believe you went for a walk and you were like, I feel like I can rotate a little bit more. And I mean, think about it. It's the difference between seeing Michael Johnson sprint and then watching Arnold Schwarzenegger sprint. So, I love Arnold. Love you out there, buddy. But, when you see those two guys run, Michael Johnson's going to flow, and then Arnold's going to be a little bit more of an elephant. He's going to be really, really stiff, right? So we want to work on that fascial component first. And like I've told you guys so many times throughout the week, fascia is first, okay? It is the master regulator of pretty much everything in the human body. Everything else is secondary to the fascia. So the healthier we can keep the fascia, the healthier our movement is going to be, the healthier our breathing is going to be, the better our movements in the gym are going to be, probably the healthier our sex life is going to be. That's all conjecture for the most part. But, really, space is the language of true health in the human body. And when things start to get tight, I've worked on 2 people in 15 years of working on bodies. I've worked on 2 people and taken them off their high blood pressure medication. Okay. And both of these people, I mean, just cement from the neck probably down to about the mid torso. Okay. And as I start to loosen that tissue up, is it crazy to think that the heart can beat with a little bit more freedom?
Nope.
And it doesn't. I mean, it'd be kind of like if you took just the grip here right? And you put it from one side to the other and you squeezed it as hard as you could, as hard as it would go. Walk around throughout the day. I guarantee you in a half hour, your heart's going to be beating out of your chest, right? A lot of tension in there. I've helped people reduce the prescription of their eyeglasses by working on muscles and fascia in the head, neck, and shoulders. You know, you create space. All of a sudden, the body goes back to functioning the way it was when you were young, when you had all the space in the world that you could deal with, right? And you never see children 2, 3, 4 years old walking around in pain, right? Because their body's continuously opening up and growing. And then when we get to that point where our body doesn't really, I would imagine you guys haven't grown since you were about maybe 17, 18, something like that.
It's been a bit, yeah.
Yeah. So when the body stops growing, now we just need to focus on keeping it open. We need to focus on keeping space in the tissue. I tell people the end of a capillary is literally the size of one red blood cell. Okay. So the pictures that I showed you of the damaged fascia and the healthy fascia, right? Every single one of those little web-like structures, okay, those little tubules that are going through,
pull up a picture of some fascia.
That's information, right? That's being passed through those little tubules. That's information. And then you saw the one that was damaged where it was just snotty, really thick. You're looking at not too much information is getting through. It's like fiber optic cable or a piece of wood. Which one's going to conduct information a little bit better, right? So the damaged fascia is like a piece of wood, and then the healthy fascia is going to be a lot more...
Something like that, or...
Maybe type in like healthy versus damaged fascia.
Type in, that's going to... The Architecture of Human Living Fascia. Did you get that book?
It's coming in the mail. It's still coming. That's one of those books that's like, it's going to take a while since it's a bit older. But can you explain to people what, like you were just explaining what fascia was, but like exactly what it is, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I think, you know, people think of like myofascial release and you hear it every now and then, but you don't really understand how big of a deal it is in the body.
Sure. So we have been sold for a very, very long time. We have been sold inaccurate representations of how the body works. Okay. Anything higher than a 3 on a pain scale of 10 is going to be fascia. It's not going to be muscle. Sean Gibson did a experiment sometime in the late 1990s where he had people walk downhill to get their quadriceps sore. Okay. The next day, when everybody came in, they're like, yes, I'm very sore. He did 2 things. He injected their muscle tissue with a sugar solution, which is an irritant. And he also injected their ECM, the extracellular matrix. It's the fascia between your skin and your muscle, okay, with the same irritant. And what he found is that when you injected the muscle, there was no more soreness. When you injected the ECM, there was more soreness. So what do? You squat really heavy the next day, you wake up, oh, my legs are sore, dude. My glutes are so sore. It's not your muscle tissue, it's your fascia, okay? I'll relate a better story to this. I want to say it's maybe like 5-6 years ago, a good friend of mine, he lives in Hawaii. He flew over to Naples to work with, play around with his brother, play golf, like hang out with him, everything like that. And he was playing tennis. He reached for a ball that he knew he couldn't get, but you know, the ego was really going that day. So as he reached for it and he planted his foot, he thought that he tore his shorts, but then the pain told him that he tore something else. So he gave me a call and he's like, Chris, he goes, my leg is black and blue from my glute all the way down to my calf. And he's like, is there anything that you can do for me? I said, I don't know. I'll come over on Saturday and we'll see. So I show up, and as I start to kind of like palpate the area and work around the tissue and find out what the problem is, because I know that the torn hamstring is a symptom, okay? I find that his glute minimus and his glute medius are super, super tight. Now, what does this dude do? He loves to travel. So he's on planes for a really long period of time. And then he loves activity. But he does no myofascial work on himself at all. Okay, he thinks like another lie that we've been told is that exercise is the only thing you need to do for your body. Okay, exercise and rest. So as I open up his glute minimus and his glute medius and get the clamp of both of those guys off the body and relax, he stands up and he starts walking around and he has no more pain in his hamstring.
Even though that area just tore.
Even though he has pictures on his phone to this day. And he'll show people, if anybody asks him about, oh, this has been bothering me, he'll be like, look at what my friend Chris did for me. And he'll show them pictures and say, I was in incredible amounts of pain. He worked on such and such, and all of a sudden I could move again. And the funny part was a couple days later, he went to go play golf again with his brother, and his brother demanded that he get me on the phone, okay, to ask what I did. And this guy's like yelling at me in the phone, didn't you see that hematoma? You're nuts for touching that thing. I wouldn't go anywhere within a 10 square mile radius, whatever. And I'm like, I didn't do anything to the hamstring. I simply released whatever was jamming it up upstream of the human body. Okay, so he should have, according to what we've been told, okay, you pulled a muscle. Mark pulled a muscle. He went sprinting, okay? But if we get the problem of what's creating the pulled muscle to happen, to go away, how come, it's not like he was playing tennis or he went running or sprinting or anything like that, but when you get the body's sense of injury to go away, the muscle has very, very little to do with how much pain you're actually feeling. And that's why he was able to golf. He said he still felt it. It's still there, obviously, because it's still purple and black and brown and yellow. And it was nasty. But when you release the fascia, the fascial points that are creating the problem, our sense of pain is greatly reduced and greatly diminished. Right? So it's contrary to all belief. Everything that we've been told, you pull a hamstring or you pull a quad or you pull a hip flexor, it's the muscle. You need to find the focal fascial points that are tying that area up. And when you loosen those areas up, I can guarantee you that your pain is going to be reduced significantly. And, there are not a lot of people that can say, I've had, pain in this area on 9, and just by working on me for a half hour or 45 minutes, the pain's reduced to like a 2 or a 3. But it happens all the time in my practice when I'm working with people, and they're befuddled. They're super confused. They're like, I have no idea, and everybody calls it witchcraft. But what I do is I'm working with the primary architecture, the command center of the human body. And when you do that, everything else becomes secondary. Everything, as long as the fascia is good, the muscle can be sitting there and being like, oh yes, woe is me. I'm kind of hurting a little bit. But the fascia is like, I'm good. I don't care. Like, you'll be fine in a couple days. Okay. But we're told that it's the muscle, right? Or we're told that it's the nerve. But like I was explaining earlier, I've had people come to me that have had ablations where the nerve gets burned. I've had people that have had rhizotomies where the nerve gets cut. I've had people that come to me with epidurals 4 times a year and they're no longer working. Okay. So what gives? If I tell you I'm going to burn this rope and you're not going to be able to climb on it anymore, but then I burn it and you're still able to climb on it, that's kind of messed up, right? Like what's going on? And these people have been promised permanent results. You're never going to feel this pain again. And in 4 to 6 weeks, the body reroutes the pain and it comes back. That's got to be detrimental to your psyche, right? You're having this pain for such a long period of time, and somebody says, we're going to cut the nerve, we're going to burn the nerve, you're never going to feel it again, or we're going to numb it, right, with a shot. And then all of a sudden the pain comes back 4 to 6 weeks later. What road do you have left to go down? Right. And I don't do any advertising. So people down in South Florida, they got to hear about me from word of mouth, from another friend or somebody who knows me. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of frustrating in that respect, because I feel people are being misled by those procedures. And I feel that they're quite barbaric in some instances, because a lot of people that come to see me, they're older. They're like 60, 70 years old, and you're burning and cutting things that they potentially need.
Yeah.
Okay. And what it comes down to is fascia has an infinite ability to reroute pain, because that's the master control mechanism, like I talked about. Okay. As long as fascia is good and it can sense that there's instability or a problem, it doesn't matter what you snip or snap, the pain's going to come back. That's just what it comes down to.
How can people learn more about about breathing correctly? You did mention a book. You mentioned James Nestor. We've had Patrick McEwen and James Nestor on the show before, so we know about some of those resources. But you were mentioning to me several times with these fascial maneuvers. I think you were mentioning Human Garage. That's like an Instagram handle, right?
Correct. So in 2017, I believe it was, I went out to the Human Garage to get work done by Gary Lineman Company. And when I showed up, started getting the work done, I told Gary, I've heard you on Ben Greenfield's podcast, and my wife and I, we were driving over to Tampa at the time to meet friends. And as we're listening to the podcast, my wife is like, he's saying everything that you say. And I was like, I've never heard anybody say or talk about the things that I talk about. So I was like, we got to go out and see him. So we went out to go and see him. And I told him, I said, I'm a body worker. I told him I heard him on the podcast and everything like that. And what we quickly found out is that we're brothers from a different mother. And it's kind of like, we can feel things and we understand things about the human body that a lot of people do not. And in Gary's case, he was doing it on such a high level that it became somewhat of a threat to the system. So he's no longer practicing that, but what he ended up doing was creating these fascial maneuvers. Okay, and he showed them to me even before they were certifying people in them, but I was going through my fun time of stage 2 adrenal fatigue, which meant that any type of exercise or any type of movement, it just created more fatigue for me. So he showed me them, and they were so difficult to do all 10 of them at the same time. I woke up the next day and I'm like, I just don't know about those. Like, I could feel that there were things going on, but I was like, I just don't know about that. So I waited about 6 months and I kept on getting emails like, come and get certified, Chris. So I went and got certified. And what I realized is that the more that I did them after getting certified, the more that I did them, the better I started to feel. And the more things were opening up in my body that I was not able to open through pressure. Okay, so I was breathing correctly, but I wasn't getting in proper positions and breathing correctly in order to open up the tissue the way that it needs to be opened up. And that's the magic of the fascial maneuvers. They're on my website. They're on my YouTube channel. They're on Human Garage's YouTube channel. They're phenomenal, and they don't require any equipment whatsoever.
What's the reason why they're so effective? Is it because it works off this kind of, and maybe you can explain this kind of spiral X pattern of fascia?
So one of the reasons why I feel like it is so effective is because as fascia gets tight, it dries out. Okay. And what I feel the fascial maneuvers do through the breath, because
like literally dries out.
So a lot of the hard areas that I feel in your body, those are adhesions. Okay. That's fascia that's been glued down, that you can't get a good enough amount of nutrients in. And then you also can't get the byproducts for muscle energy production and waste out.
Understood.
Okay. So you were talking about earlier, you said, my hands are slowly turning into calcium carbonate. Well, these adhesions in your body, as the tissue cannot get enough water because of the adhesions, because it's being jammed up, okay? The tissue literally starts to dry out, and the nerves, they start to go to sleep. They don't die, but they start to go to sleep, okay? And we'll get a loss of feeling in that area. So when we're trying to open them up with something like pressure, my elbow or a ball or something like that, you can melt the adhesion by doing about 2 to 3 minutes of continuous work or pressure on the area. Your body starts producing what's called hyaluronic acid in between the layers of tissue All right. And it's kind of like WD-40 for the muscle. All right. And as you keep on working on that tissue and it becomes more and more lubricated, it starts to unglue, break apart, and you start to get more nutrients in. So the tissue gets hydrated. When you're doing the fascial maneuvers and breathing, I feel like that gets accelerated times 100. Okay, where you get into these really tight positions, and then as you move, you kind of want to think about, I can't even think of like a really good description right now, but let's say, you have chains, right, that are laying on the ground, okay, and it's fixed from one point to one point. Okay, now you could go and lift every little link in the chain up off the ground. That would probably be pressure when you're applying pressure. You're slowly touching every part of the link and you're getting it hydrated and it's starting to open up. Where if you just tie one end of that chain to a truck and hit the gas, right, it's gonna fly right up. Okay, the chain's just gonna come right up off the ground and it's gonna have good tension on it and whatnot. And that's what healthy fascia is. Healthy fascia is responsible for keeping things together at all times, but also keeping things separated. And that's another aspect of fascia in the human body that nobody's talking about. So we get these cases where somebody might have all the cartilage eroded in their knee, okay? Yet, as long as you fix the fascia, you have no pain, right? So what gives? If you don't have cartilage and everything that we know medically says cartilage equals pain if it's not existing, but we have cases where we fix the fascia, we don't even worry about the cartilage. That's because the cartilage is secondary to keeping the knee joint separated to fascia. You see what I'm saying? So when we get back to the fascial maneuvers, as you are breathing, think about that chain literally being lifted, okay, off the skeleton or off the muscle tissue or just being broken apart by the breath. Because like I said, when fascia has to move, breath is the only thing that will override it, okay? Even pain, everything like that, where, there were some areas when I first started working on your adductor, I put my elbow in very lightly and you're like, that's too much. Okay, so when you're working on things yourself, doing the fascial maneuvers, and you're breathing in that manner, like I said, it's yourself working on yourself. It's an active process, okay? Your breath is telling your body to move. Your fascia recognizes this. It understands where it's stuck. And when you're in that twisted position and you breathe, fascia says, my master is commanding me to move. It doesn't matter that adhesion is protecting instability in a joint or a vertebrae or something like that. Fascia says, when I breathe, I move. And that adhesion will start to relax, release, and you'll naturally start to get more byproducts and things like that in there to heal the area, okay? When I'm doing body work on you, on the table, like I've said many times before, that's a restful position. Doesn't really correlate too much to the real world, okay? Fascia responds to gravity and gravity only. All right, so when you're laying down, you're at rest. You're not doing anything active. I'm pointing to areas in the body and telling the brain and the fascia and the nerve and the muscle, this is a problem that you need to solve. And all those checks and balances go through, and the body says, yes, okay, Chris, I understand you. But the magic doesn't happen until you stand up off the table and walk. When you get reintroduced to gravity, okay? We worked on Andrew here on his high left shoulder, and I showed you guys how his right leg was short, his left leg was long, worked on the trap, and then I told him to walk around. Okay, when he walked around, I had him sit back on the chair, and then I measured his legs again. If I would have measured his legs immediately after working on his trap, the leg doesn't move yet. The leg's still short. And when I was doing that for a while, I couldn't understand. I'm like, this is a long time ago, like 7-8 years ago. I'm like, dang it, like, why isn't it moving? And then they would stand up, walk around, or they would come back, the client would come back for the next appointment, and I would measure their legs, and their legs would be correct. So it took me a while to understand, wait a minute, you can influence and change the shape of the body on the table, but the body doesn't make the correction until you stand up and move, until you start becoming active again.
We pulled up a video from Human Garage, and it was kind of similar. It wasn't the same thing that you were showing me with Mark, but it was something somewhat similar. So people can just have a visual of what you kind of talk about. What is he doing like here?
So Gary says that this is trauma release, okay? And really, when it comes to any different forms of stress, it's also commonly called trauma as well, okay? Trauma is stress, stress is trauma to the human body. But this was the early days of the fascial maneuvers, okay? Getting the arms crossed, getting into a fetal position, and taking deep, giant panic breaths, 3 through the mouth, 3 through the nose, or 6 through the mouth, 6 through the nose, something like that. And when you breathe through the mouth or breathe through your nose, it's going to be different each time, okay? So what he's doing here, like we said, getting into, I should preface this by, Gary has found out that when you get the body as close to the fetal position as possible, that's when it's most apt to make a change, okay? And I can't remember if I was talking to you about this, Nsima, okay? When I showed you how to do that stretch on the GHR.
Yeah, I was
right?
just thinking about that.
And I said, a lot of people are going to say you shouldn't round your back when you do a glute stretch like that or a back stretch, right? It's really, really bad for you. And I said, but we look at how we were born when we're in the womb. I mean, the arms are crossed, the legs are up, feet are by the head, okay? And it's like, that's the type of mobility and the flexibility that the body is born with. But by the time we're 25 or 30, we've already been in a chair since we were 8 years old, 9 years old, in school. And the body has been told that we only go down to that 90-degree level. So it's in an effort to be efficient. It says, I'm just never going to go past that ever again. Okay, and your flexibility and your mobility diminish over time. Okay, so back to the maneuver that Gary was doing. When we need to open the fascia up in a more efficient way, we need to get in these twisty positions. And the closer that we can get to something like a fetal position, we are going to be able to open the fascia up in a faster, more efficient manner. Okay, so that's why Jason is in that position, and that's why Gary is in the position that he is in. And it's a little bit different from what I did with you, Mark, because they've evolved over time. All right, but that was the rough beginnings, I guess you could say, of how fascial maneuvers were born, or assisted fascial maneuvers, because you can do them yourself, and I show people how to do them, how to do it themselves on my YouTube channel, but when you do it with somebody assisted, like you saw, you're just going to be able to get into positions through my assistance that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. So it accelerates, once again, it accelerates the opening of your tissue.
I also want to attest and mention something. I love it when I have like an injury or something that happens and then a guest lines up. That's perfect for what's about to go on, because a few weeks ago I coughed, and if you guys know the Stu McGill book, he says cough upwards. Well, I didn't. I sneezed forwards and the pressure went right into my lower back. So I sneezed and I heard a little boop, and I was like, fuck, something happened. A few days later, I go to jiu-jitsu and I'm changing in the bathroom, and immediately my lower back starts firing up and lighting up. I'm like, goddamn, I did something. Rolling was kind of tough. Getting off the mat, bending down was tough. I was moving like an old person like this. And I texted Mark. I was like, dude, is Chris here? Can you do some work on me? You did some work. You did some body work on my back. I get up, you had me walk around. The pain went from my right side to towards the middle of my back. The pain literally moved, but my freedom of movement was way more. Then you
less of a threat.
Less of a threat. We do some more work. You work on me again. I get up and move. Now I'm moving freely. The pain is still there, but I'm actually able to move. And I've had this before. It's happened in the past, but I was like, okay, it's going to be about 6 days until I can roll again. I was rolling jujitsu. I could have rolled the next day, but I chose to roll 2 days later, and I'm fine. Like, I still feel it, and it's getting less and less, but my movement, my freedom of movement is there. So it's wild because I've dealt with this before, but I never was able to get right back into athletic work that soon and that quickly. So, you know, what you're talking about and what we're going to be getting into, because for some people, they're going to be like, oh, this is woo-woo stuff. It's not.
No.
It's just like you got to do some of it.
And the next day, Nsima and I are both in the gym and we're like rubbing all over bars, whatever way we can figure out. We're like, we're so dumb. We got to stay on top of this stuff. And
Yeah.
Shout out to Kelly Starrett and some other people that put this forward and pushed this on us before. My buddy Jesse Burdick is probably like, he doesn't have any hair to pull out, but he's pulling hair from his goatee probably. Just thinking, man, I've been telling you about that for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, you know, to start to put these things into practice and to, you know, examine all the different people that we've had here. But one thing that I find really interesting is that, you know, when we're in pain like this, for me, because I'm not a mobile person at the moment, and I have never been a very mobile person. So I'm always thinking like, man, if I was mobile like Nsima, I probably wouldn't be in pain. But Nsima ends up getting in pain sometimes as well. So when we have these like adhesions, like does that, you know, is stretching going to be anything that's going to assist? Or you mentioned earlier, we're kind of taught like, you know, diet and exercise, they're going to help fix everything. If I'm on a good diet and I don't have inflammation, then I should feel healthy. And if I'm stretching, then I should be mobile. Where do you sit on some of this stuff?
So stretching, in my opinion, for the most part, okay, traditional stretching, the old park bench hamstring stretch or something like that, or the old standing quad stretch, something like that, or, you know, I'm getting ready to bench and I'm doing one of these.
I love
right?
that one.
Something like that.
Can you even get your shoulders?
No. Hurt myself.
Oh, careful.
Oh, there we go. Oh,
Your face is getting red.
Yeah, bro.
I'm going to choke myself out.
I was going to say, you're about to pop a
Tapping
pec.
myself out.
No, you could bench 856 cold right now.
That's
after
right.
that stretch.
I'm
Easily.
ready. I'm ready.
So obviously you know where I'm going with this, right? For the most part, it's absolutely worthless. Okay. And I'm going to preface this. I've told you the quote, and I really want everybody to kind of like pause the podcast after I say this and think about it. Okay. How many times it may have rang true for you in your life. I was watching the final episode of a show called Outer Range, okay, with Josh Brolin. Really fantastic show, but what resonated with me the most on the last episode was there was a billboard that showed up and it said, America wants you to believe that everything worth knowing is what's already known. America is wrong. Okay? And if it wasn't for podcasts like this, or if it wasn't for podcasts like Joe Rogan, right, with Dr. Peter McCullough and guests and like that, okay? For some reason, information like this is being suppressed, okay? And we've known, Andrew Taylor's still the godfather of osteopathy. 1899, he knew that fascia was the key to everything. He understood that this mechanism we have in our body is the language of true health, of what's mechanistically true when it comes to movement and whatnot. How come it's 123 years later and still in 2009 there was a meeting of the minds, everybody got together, the first fascial conference in Boston, and everybody got together and said, we know probably about 5% of what fascia does in the human body.
Holy shit.
Okay, so it's like we know more about the Mariana Trench probably in the Pacific than we do about fascia. Okay, so like you said, this becomes kind of like woo-woo, right? When we talk about it, we'll talk about something like scalar energy. Okay, scalar energy was known to exist by James Clerk Maxwell in the mid-1800s. Okay, and then Tesla, so he was the godfather of quantum physics. Okay, everybody looked at his calculations and they said, you know what? Everything checks out. Scalar waves exist. They're too mystical for us. And it's just kind of like, wait a minute, what? So I find something that can revolutionize and change the world, but it's too mystical. And what I'm here to tell everybody is that life is much more interesting than what you can see, touch, taste, smell, and hear. It's much more interesting than that. Why? Because I've worked with the human body for the last 15 years, and there are things that I feel that I can't put into words. Okay, like the words just don't exist. I'll be working on a young child, and the parents are all nervous because the kid's in a little bit of pain, and they're like, oh my goodness, no, like, it hurts, like, stop. And I'm like, no, he's okay, he's fine. Stands up, like Lachlan stands up a little bit later, and I feel a lot better, Mom. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, they're all at ease. But all I'm using is touch. It's just touch. I'm not getting, like this crazy contraption out and being like, stand back, wear a bulletproof vest. I need you to stand in the corner and I'm going to throw the switch. We're more so apt to trust machines now than we are a human being saying that I will touch you or put pressure on your system or your tissue and you'll feel better after. Okay? So when you guys both talk about how the work that I did, it didn't 100% take the pain away like that, but you're still able to move without a threat, further enforces that when you're working with the correct system, right?
Yeah.
When you take the body's sense of injury away, the health of the muscle doesn't really matter. It's just a dumb piece of meat, basically, doing whatever fascia tells it to do. And fascia's pain or fascia's problems trump whatever is going on with the muscle. So the muscle could be waving, white flags and being like, I'm fatigued and I'm adhered to and I got problems and please listen to me. And the fascia's like, well, the joints are good, shut up. Okay, but then when you work on the tissue and you get the fascia, and when the fascia has a real problem and you work on the fascia and you get those adhesions to go away and you free up the muscle and you free up the nerve, now all of a sudden we can move. And yeah, it might take a little bit. We found a pretty big kink in your armor, right? I showed you that one back exercise up against the wall with a 25-pound plate. And I was like, basically, you're just going to do 5 in each position, right? And I said, you want to go from one leg to the other. You don't want to take a break.
I hate how everyone kind of just comes here and finds kinks. And just like,
yeah.
let's work this shit out.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I find with the back more specifically is the back is geared towards endurance. I mean, even right now, okay, when we're just standing here, gravity's compressing us to the floor and our spine.
I kept denying stuff as he was working on me. He's like,
Nice.
oh, what's this? I'm like, that's nothing. He's like, well, what about this? I'm like, same thing. I'm like, I'm fine. He's like, you feel okay? I'm like, I'm great.
Yeah.
I'm the normal one.
He's like, no, this is like, you have disgusting tissue right here.
No, I don't.
Exactly.
I'm pressing on his hamstring. I'm like, we got something over here, huh? And like his face is purple. He's like, nope. Okay, it's my imagination. I'm just making stuff up. And then, funny enough, later on, he was like, I felt that hamstring while I was squatting the other day, and I was like, yeah, I felt it. I felt it too.
Yeah.
So really, when it comes down to it, like I said, life is a lot more interesting than what we're being told in the media. It's a lot more interesting than what we're being told in medical textbooks or in school. Okay. And for me, my greatest teacher was first being in pain. Okay. And then getting rid of my own pain over time. And being a strength and conditioning coach, I had the opportunity to work with people that were constantly getting hurt. And when they were getting hurt, I started to be inquisitive and be like, you want me to work on that for you? A guy comes in with a stinger from football. I want you to check that out. Why? You can do something? I don't know. It's just sit right here. And I do the same thing to him that I did to Andrew, where I'd feel around in the trap. What doesn't feel right? Okay. Nice and soft over here on this side, kind of lumpy and bumpy over here on this side. Okay. We'll put a little pressure in there. All of a sudden the tissue softens up. stands up, moves around, my stinger is gone. Okay, so this is not like a panacea. This isn't something that, you know, you need to be doing for 15 years like I have been doing in order to get good results. What you need to understand is that muscles tell a story, and all you need to do is be inquisitive and experimental in rolling around and putting pressure on the body to, you know, and people are almost afraid of that. I've had people come into my practice and I'll tell them, I say, okay, you know, after I worked on you, here's your homework. And I want you to roll on this area for 3 minutes. And I want you to roll on this area for 4 to 6 and this one for 8. And they look at me and they say, but my doctor told me only to use a foam roller for 30 seconds. Now, I told you guys earlier that it takes 2 minutes for hyaluronic acid to be produced so we can start melting that adhesion. Mm-hmm. What's 30 seconds going to do for you? Absolutely nothing, okay? I realize that for the doctor, it probably comes down to liability, okay? But 2 things. Like I said, the information's kind of being suppressed. And number 2, it's like people are literally afraid to put pressure on their body because they think they're going to hurt themselves, okay? And when I launched my back pain Bible in 2016, I had a slew of emails coming in saying I rolled on this area and I feel more pain. And I would say, okay, do you feel pain or are you sore? And they would say, oh no, you're right, I'm more sore. Is the pain better? And this is all in an email exchange, right? Is the pain better now? Well, yes, the pain is better, but I'm sore. Did I hurt myself? And I'm just like, you know, this is the darndest thing. You take the person's pain away, but because they're a little bit sore, the first thing that comes to their mind is like, did I hurt myself? And it's like, the logic isn't lining up there. The pain is less. I'm a little bit sore from rolling on the tissue. So all of my books moving forth, I had to literally put a disclaimer in there and say, if you're sore the next day after rolling, that's because you released an adhesion or a chronic contraction of the tissue. And here's the darndest thing about fascia. It has an infinite ability to contract. Infinite. Okay? I mean, Mark, he goes to bed, his body's still exercising in certain areas. Okay? And when you start to get those adhesions to relax and the system to calm down and the fight or flight system to go away, it's kind of like if Mark was holding a coffee cup while he was trying to sleep, okay? And then as he fell asleep, the coffee cup would fall on the floor and wake him up. Okay, so he'll go to sleep and he's been sleeping, what you said, 4 or 5 hours typically?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So 4 to 5 hours you're looking at, and every single time, you know, that coffee cup starts to fall, he wakes up and he has to turn over because even though he's trying to rest, the body can't be in a restful position.
Yeah,
right?
You were telling me, like, you lay on one side and you're like, oh, my shoulder kind of hurts. And then you're restless, you move to the other side. It might not even be stuff that I'm all that conscious of.
Yeah.
Because as an athlete, you suppress everything and you're like, well, that doesn't hurt that bad.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're in these weird positions throughout the night and you keep moving, and the coffee keeps spilling all over the floor. You're like, what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah. You're confused and you just like, yeah, I'm getting old. I'm not supposed to sleep well anyways. Right.
Right.
And shout out to Joel Green and his immune center coaching course. Guys, he's an animal when it comes to nutrition. I know you guys know this, but you know, I'm basically getting into super sleep right now just through Bodywork.
Yes.
And I told you guys the story of the lady that I worked on. She was a nurse, 25 years, basically getting like 3 to 5 hours of sleep a night, something like that. She came to me, lots of back pain, worked on her. She was from New Jersey. I told her, I said, when you get done here, I want you to go home, or go to your friend's home and walk on the beach for 30 minutes, maybe even be daring and get your feet in the water, okay, before you go to bed. And she was like, okay, I'll do it. Now, one of the things that our body loses over time if we're not constantly putting our feet in the actual ground is something called the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, okay? And what this is called is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. Now, how many type of Nikes and Reeboks and Adidas and Louis Vuitton shoes did Cro-Magnon man wear? Right? Not that many. And these people they had their feet on the ground every single day. They would get into rivers and lakes and probably the most pristine water. You know, DuPont wasn't down the street and dumping whatever they dump. Shout out to DuPont. So what we're looking at is just getting the body back to what nature intended. Okay. And this lady did everything that I said. So before she was leaving, she said that her back pain was about 50% better. Her friends the next day, now they're older, they're in their early 70s, okay, and I believe this lady was around 55, 56. They were literally doing rock, paper, scissors in the morning to see if she was dead. They were like, I'm not going in there, you're going in there. And they're, no, I'm not going in there, you're going in there, type of thing. She fell asleep at 8:30. She went into her room at 8:30. She woke up at 9:30 the next day.
God dang.
So you take the body's sense of injury away. You get her on the ground, get some grounding going, okay? And you calm down the central nervous system. Then you're looking at when you go to rest, your body can actually rest, right? And what do we know about sleep? Like I told Chris, I gave him the oils and he put it on his neck and he fell asleep at the computer. And he was like, dang man, I didn't realize it would work that quick. But when you're never going to be able to truly heal unless if you're sleeping well, right? And it's just, we're told that it's accepted that as you get older, you're just going to sleep less.
Yeah.
Which, yes, it comes down to things like bifidobacteria in your body. It comes down to things like melatonin production and whatnot. But do you think that a 75-year-old body has more adhesions than a 20-year-old body? I would probably say in most cases, yeah, right? So you got 75-year-old Bob, right? He's trying to go to sleep and just get 5 hours. All I want is 5 hours. And he wakes up after 3 or 4, like, dang it, not tonight, you know? And it's like, all you have to do is care for the fascia, get a little bit of pressure in some of these areas, roll the body out, okay? And you're going to be able to take the stress levels down. And when you go to rest, your body's actually going to be at rest, right?
Yeah. And Mark, I don't think you mentioned it, but I mean, on the air, but you've been sleeping more since he's been doing Bodywork.
I'm sleeping right now. I've been sleeping probably 8 hours, 10 hours, last maybe about 4 or 5 days or so in a row, which makes me feel really groggy just because I'm not used to it.
Right.
And I'm just like letting it happen too. I'm like, well, let me just, while I'm kind of halfway bummed out about waking up a little bit later because I like to start the day earlier. I'm just like, let me just see where I naturally just want to wake up at the moment. And I think that that's in huge part to what you're doing. Because otherwise, I mean, I have explored this many times before. Like, let me just see like when I want to wake up. Let me just see when I want to go to bed. I've messed around with that a bunch of times. And normally I just wake up at like 4:30.
Yeah.
And now I'm waking up at like 6:30, 7:30, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing from a healing perspective, and that's all we're asking your body to do right now. Lifetime of lifting weights heavier than anybody else has, and now it's time to kind of tone down, relax a little bit. Let's strip away some of the stress from those years of training, developing a business, raising kids, things like that. All of that stuff is taken into account, not just the weightlifting. The weightlifting may have the bigger impact and whatnot, but really that's all it comes down to is getting the body into a restful enough position while you're sleeping to actually rest, and the body takes care of itself. So if you look at a chart of melatonin production over a lifetime, I believe it goes from like the day you were born all the way up to around like 80, 85 years old. It shows by the time you're 44, 45, you've lost about 50% of your melatonin production. Okay, at night. So somebody would just say, well, Mark, all you're doing is just losing your melatonin production, right? Mm-hmm. That's why you're not sleeping that long. Okay, I'll come in and say, I don't feel like it has anything to do with the lack of melatonin production. Is your body getting in a restful enough position to be able to rest, right? So we start to calm the system down and get rid of these adhesions and some pain points, Okay. And what happens? The body is a human garage quote. The body is designed to heal itself. All I'm doing is giving it the tools to do so. It's all the body needs is the tools, right? With fascial maneuvers, with, rolling on things like I teach in my books, like balls, getting bands, bars, stuff like that. It doesn't require a lot of time. It doesn't require a lot of money. Okay. But what it becomes is a threat to the system, right? So it's not going to be promoted by the system.
It requires some variety, right? Like, because you're like working on us, and you're encouraging us to work on ourselves, and you're encouraging us to do other things, and you're also encouraging like, hey, like, as soon as you feel comfortable, like go back to the things that you really love, the things that you enjoy.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think a lot of times people are just like they'll listen to this show maybe, and they're like, okay, I gotta like rub myself on some stuff in the gym, but that's not where it ends. I mean, you still need to work on other aspects, because like I look at you move around, and some of the different things that you're doing in the gym, like holy shit, he moves really well. But I see you doing like bear crawls forwards and backwards. I saw you do like a 360 version of like a bear crawl. I saw you running and skipping and like doing a lot of these other movements. So I'm imagining, along with getting rid of those adhesions, that there's just a lot of other stuff that we need to do. And I think it's noteworthy to tell people that the adhesions won't go away without pressure, right? Like
correct.
Is there any other way in your mind for them to disappear, like mobility or knees over toes stuff, or any movements that we see from functional patterns or any of these people? Do you think that you could have those adhesions go away through these like movement patterns?
So number one, what do we know about food? It makes bodies, right? So diet has to be good for the fascia to be healthy. Number two, when we looked at things like structured water, okay, structured water is found in the cytoplasm and the serum of every cell in the human body. It's found in our blood, etc. When we look at adhesions, we actually have more bulk water than we do structured water. Structured water is a greater concentration of electrons to protons, okay? Bulk water is a greater concentration of protons, all right? So when we're looking at an adhesion, we find that we have actually less life force in the adhesion, all right? Number three is going to be movement.
When you say life force, by the way, what do you mean?
When I say life force, I just mean your body's ability to express health.
Okay.
Something like that, okay?
Like not as much life running through it, not
exactly.
as much nutrients, liquids, so
all
forth.
that stuff. Yeah, exactly. So number three would be movement, which Nadi and from Functional Patterns and Knees Over Toes guy do. So I would preferentially get rid of knee pain through pressure first, then movement. Okay, I work with a lot of CrossFit athletes, and they always want to know, as soon as they come in, when am I going to be able to do muscle ups again? When am I going to be able to squat again? When can I deadlift again, right?
Yeah.
They always, and I say, you could do it right as soon as we're done, as long as it's not above a pain of like a 4 or a 5. And they're like, really? Because I also believe that movement will help heal the body, and movement can help, in some cases, break up adhesions as well. But you want to prime the system either through the fascial maneuvers or through using balls and pressure and bars and whatnot via pressure, okay? I feel, and I've had the greatest success of having pressure done first, then you can go and do movement, okay? And what Ben Patrick is doing is he's omitting the pressure side and saying, you know what, I'm going to take you through a progression of 3 months or so. You're going to start off baby steps, okay, like very, very light. And by the time we're done with that 3 months, you're going to be in full range of motion, your knee pain free. Where when I'm just doing it with pressure and then movement, I'll get that person pain free, depending on how bad the area is, maybe 2 to 4 sessions, something like that, okay? Which, depending on how much the person comes to see me, you're looking at maybe like a week to 2 weeks, okay? And then they're going to go and move. And then a week or 2 or 3, they'll come back after the body has rearranged itself, and we'll clean up something else that maybe like 10% of whatever's left or whatever. But both of those guys are spot on. They're just doing it differently than I do.
I don't know if I've heard it or someone mentioned this recently, that fascia takes like 12 weeks or something to restructure. I don't know if that holds like truth and legitimacy, but how long does it take to actually change and restructure your fascia? And then also
3 days.
3 days?
Yes.
Can you talk to us about that a bit?
And I've seen it way too much in my practice for me to really be convinced of anything else. Okay. Like clockwork, somebody comes in, uber amounts of pain. Okay. Back, knee, hip, shoulder, neck, whatever. Okay. I work on them and I tell them, I say, you're going to feel your best in 3 days. Okay. Sometimes even if I don't say that, that's when they do feel their best. In some cases, they'll wake up the very next day and they'll actually have a little bit more pain, a little bit more difficulty moving. I move fascia around in the body very, very quickly. When pain is protection, okay, number one, when you move tissue around that quickly, I think I talked to you about this right before we did. So I come on the podcast and let's say I take the bottle of Mind Bullet and I just throw it off to the side. And you and Mark are looking at me like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then I take just the grip over here and I throw it off and I hit Andrew with it. And Mark will be like, okay, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, don't be weird. And then I reach for Mark's drink over here. He's going to grab my hand and be like, don't do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, oh God, Chris is going to get killed right now. Like, what is he doing? So because pain is protection, fascia is the ultimate protector. Okay. When you open up tissue really, really quickly, that's what the body senses. I'm already reaching for the can right here. Okay. And the body's like, oh gosh, I've been arranged like this for a really long period of time. I'm trying to make sure that we don't get hurt, and you're taking that away. Okay. So you wake up the next day and you might be in a little bit more pain because the body's like, please don't go and deadlift 400. Don't break out into a 40-meter sprint. Okay. I'm still trying to figure out if what we did to the body was good. Day 2, they wake up and not only has the pain improved considerably, but they can move well. Day 3, they wake up, the pain in most cases will be completely gone and they're moving like they were, a very long time ago with a lot more freedom, I guess you could say. But every single time that I work on somebody for the first time, it's 3 days. 3 days where the body takes to kind of get the housekeeping in order, and it audits itself, fascia audits itself through movement. That's just what it comes down to. The first thing, if you hurt yourself playing sports to an extent where it's not really that bad, what's everybody's first inclination? Jump up, walk it off. Jump up, shake it off, right? You jump up, something happened in that tackle, okay? You jump up and you start running around, galloping or looking kind of silly, whatever type of movements you're doing. And what is fascia in the brain doing? Okay, how much are we hurt? Where are we hurt? Is this serious type of a thing? All right. So that's really what it comes down to. I don't think I would be in business very long if it took 12 weeks for the fascia to rearrange itself. Okay. I can work on somebody 1 or 2 times and the tissue will constantly remodel for up to 12 weeks. All right. I've worked on people where obviously, they come to my home and I work on them and then I don't see that they go back to, I don't know, Montreal, New York City, LA, Texas, and they'll be like, stuff 6-7 months later, stuff is still moving around in my body. Okay. And all of that, when you release such a big problem area, okay, it's kind of like, if we come over here and I'm going to take Mark's shirt, okay, and maybe this is like a light adhesion right here. That's not a big deal. Okay, but been benching for 40 years, something like that, 46 years. He was benching in the womb, everybody, right? So now all of a sudden that adhesion gets really, really big. And you can see
everything's pulling towards that spot.
Yep, now we got problems with the left shoulder. Like this is really bad, okay? So as I apply pressure in there and I get everything to kind of calm down, the more that he moves and the more that he exercises, that's gonna, the fascial web, everything's gonna start to work itself out if he does a little bit more self-care, and things like that out of my presence. He's going to continue to be able to open that adhesion up, bench a lot better, a lot stronger, okay? And the body always wants to go to health. The body always wants that equilibrium. It's always seeking to be taken care of. One of the things that we've just never been taught going through school is how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
How to take care of. I mean, I would much rather take this than like accounting or something like that. I mean, I gave up on exercise science, my undergrad, because I couldn't get past stuff like organic chem and calculus. And I'm like, I don't need this with it. Why do I need this with exercise science? Like I just want to learn about how to become like a stud trainer or something like that.
Yeah, physical education is a real mess. It should just be like physical care. You should be able to figure out, like, because all they do is a lot of times they just expose you to some sports, and nowadays they're not even really doing that. They just have kids walk around a track looking at their phones.
Yeah.
Andrew, can you bring up the clip of my brother? I emailed it to you. So on day one, when Chris was in here, he was working on my brother Chris, and he was like, I think I can get full range of motion in this shoulder by Saturday. And I was just thinking like, wow, a lot of people have said all kinds of crazy things coming to help us out. But I was like, this is really interesting. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with my brother's shoulder, because it's been locked up for so long. And here we are just a couple days out, and my brother is able, he's doing these pull-ups.
I didn't see that. That was crazy.
This is insane for Chris.
Are you sure he didn't? This is like camera trick. Did he edit this somehow?
Yep. No, he's doing it. He's
wow.
And like his arm is still like stuck because there's so many other body parts involved when an area sort of quote unquote dies. Like that area has been shut down for a long time. And he's been trying to do stuff. It's not like he hasn't been active. It's not like he hasn't been doing like lateral raises and rotator cuff work. And it's not like he hasn't been practicing stuff. But it's very, very difficult when you don't know how to solve your own problem and when you're also in a lot of pain. Like a lot of people listening to this show right now are thinking, man, yeah, when I'm in pain, I just avoid the area.
Yeah.
Like especially
one of the biggest mistakes.
Yeah, when you first get hurt, when you first tweak something, you're like, man, I'm not even gonna think about that one. I'm just gonna do everything for today like that avoids me getting into a compromised position to feel that pain. So this is an amazing testimonial right here, seeing my brother be able to move around like this, and I think it's pretty fucking awesome. But that was 3 days. That was 3 days worth of 3 days worth of work.
And you know what I find also amazing, Chris, and we'll talk more about this too, is like, you have multiple books, and you told me start off with the Back Pain Bible. Because what I was thinking was like, okay, cool. He worked on me here. You gave me some tools with the barbell, but I'm like, well, what can I do, or what do people need to be doing? Because they're not always going to have you or their physical therapist to work on them every single day.
Right.
And in that book, you talk about like all these different tools and ways to use those tools. And it's just this is something that it takes work. In the past, when I read Supple Leopard by Kelly Starrett, I was rolling on my freaking supernova and I was doing stuff every day. And when I got to a certain point where everything was like, I was like streamlined for a while, everything was good, I was like, I stopped because I didn't think that I needed it as much. But now I'm getting back to doing that type of work every day, and my body's feeling even better. But the great thing is that for the listeners there, you can do a lot of this stuff on your own. You can find different adhesions. Like I was in the sauna the other day and I was just going over my foot and feeling, oh, this is a spot that's kind of bumpy on my right foot. I don't feel this on my left foot. Let me just fucking grind that shit out. Or I was sitting on top of the supernova and I was feeling some stuff in my right hamstring that I wasn't feeling in my left hamstring. So let me work this shit out. Like you pretty much, it's like a kid discovering themselves. You got to play with yourself a little bit and figure out what's off and what's right.
Poke around.
Just poke around, audit the body, and remember when he was laying on his stomach after he had hurt himself, I told you, I said, look at the hamstring, how it's bound up and high, right? And he just said, I was getting in my right hamstring and I'm feeling weird stuff and it's not in my left side. Okay, and here's the thing I tell people, when you're looking for stuff in the body that may be adhered to, it's anything lumpy, bumpy, okay? Anything tight, tender, sore. Obviously, don't go and roll on your gonads. Okay, something like,
why does this hurt so much?
This hurts and there's a bump, don't do that. In the same respect, I tell people, like, if you go and play basketball and you hear something pop in your knee and you can barely move it and it's really inflamed, don't be like, oh, I'm gonna go foam roll this shit out, I'm gonna be better tomorrow. Okay, like then you need to go see a doctor. Okay, but if there's no pop or anything like that and you get maybe just a little bit of inflammation, number one, more than likely, okay, it's not going to be the joint. Number two, look upstream or downstream, like Kelly Starrett would say. You look in the quad, look in something like the peroneal complex, something like that, maybe the soleus, whatever, and see if there's anything tight, tender, or sore in there. See if you can feel anything where it goes from normal jelly tissue to all of a sudden it's like you hit this lump. And I mean, several times when I was gliding on you, Mark, it's like really nice, and then kerplunk, back up again, glide really nice, kerplunk. Okay, it's like that's the way tissue is supposed to feel. And I mean, I got a master's degree and went all the way up to like physiology 610. I was never taught or told about anything about adhesions. I was never taught about fascia. I was never taught about fibrosis, trigger points, things like that. And when it came time for me to heal my own pain, and I started to realize that all these things existed, it made me even question our educational system, because I'm like, I got a master's in kinesiology, for Christ's sakes. How come this was not taught to me? Because this is pretty important. It's pretty important. And it's kind of like utopia, right? To think that with just a couple of tools, we can take care of our own bodies, and we may potentially never need the care of anybody else ever again, right? Like people just think like, no, there's no way that I could do that. And it doesn't take that much thought. It doesn't take that much time. It doesn't take that much money, okay? But what it does take, like you said, is some work.
And consistency.
You take a day off, it's like taking a week off. You take a week off, it's like taking a month off. When you're initially trying to get out of pain. But then you get to a specific point where, I had knee pain for 14 years. And I just rolled my quads out yesterday for the first time in maybe 2 months. Okay, where for some reason my body was just like, dude, just roll the quads out. And I had a pretty long stint on the Echo bike the day before. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to roll my quads out today. And I mean, it felt fantastic. Okay, so you can get to that point, but what the system is going to tell you is that we can give you a pill, a shot, or surgery, and it'll be gone tomorrow. So that's what everybody has in their mind. Like, why do I have to work at this so much? This isn't right. This can't be right. It should happen faster. But you're 62 years old and you've had that pain for the last 18 years. And you don't think that taking a year out of your life to open that area up and create and return it to health is the right way to go about things. You'd rather get the pill, the shot, or the surgery.
And the problem isn't, it's not gone.
Correct.
It didn't go anywhere.
Correct. It went somewhere else.
Hey, I know you're enjoying this clip, but listen up. We have this beef company, Piedmontese Beef, that no matter what diet you're doing, whether it's low fat, high fat, carnivore, keto, whatever, they have perfect cuts that are going to fit your diet perfectly. And the cool thing, Andrew, less connective tissue, so you're not going to have those gristly, nasty things that you have to spit out when you eat beef.
That's what those are?
That's what those are.
Oh, and Piedmontese doesn't have that.
They don't have that because the cows are jacked, lack of connective tissue, buttery when you cut into it. Amazing taste. So, Andrew, how can they get some Piedmontese?
Yes, sir. It's over at Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code POWER for 25% off your order. And if your order is $150 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Again, that's at Piedmontese.com, promo code POWER. Let's go ahead and get back to this podcast.
What about something like sciatica?
I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've only seen 2 cases of real sciatica. Okay. A lot of times, all it is an occluded glute medius or glute minimus. All right. And true sciatica is like me saying, hey, bend over and touch your toes, and you can't even touch your knees. Okay. Mark, can you touch your toes? Sometimes. But Mark doesn't have sciatica. Right? So what gives? I'm a little bit confused there. So we have a very small, goofy muscle on the side of our hip, okay, that goes from the top of our hip to our femur, okay, the head of our femur. It's called the glute minimus. It's a clam-shaped muscle. And what that is basically the command center for the leg. Okay, so when we get pressure in there, you will start to feel pain or like a nervous tingling or a numbness down the side of the leg. So 99.9 to the infinite 9% of people come in and they have this pain. And I don't touch their piriformis or anything like that. I work on their glute minimus, and I'll also probably have to correct their shoulder as well. And they stand up and the pain is virtually gone. 1, 2, maybe 3 sessions at the most. And their sciatica is miraculously gone, but I never worked anywhere near their sciatic nerve. Okay. So once again, we have, and a lot of these people, they go to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, pain down your leg. Okay, sciatica, here's a prescription, muscle relaxers, go home and rest. Go home and rest. That's all we're being told. Okay. There's no feeling the tissue, nothing like that. No checking range of motion, where painful points are, anything. So when you tell me, when you say sciatica, to me, I'm doing this all the time. I virtually never see it. Okay, but it would be dictated by not being able to bend over very far. And the further that you bent over, you would get extremely more pain in the glute going on down the leg. That would be true sciatica. Okay. And to loosen something like that up, you're looking at a well-placed lacrosse ball, okay, with a couple of decent stretches and whatnot on that side. And you're probably also looking at a very, very, very tight glute. So you want to kind of audit your movement. You want to try and figure out where you've gone wrong and maybe some of your exercise or lack of exercise. Maybe you've been sleeping on the same bed for like 30 years. You never changed it.
Oof.
Okay. Which, there have been people that have come in and I've never changed my bed. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, they get kind of old and crickety and your body's not going to like sleeping on it anymore. And it's going to cause problems like this. I've had people who constantly keep a cell phone or a wallet in their back pocket and they have like a 45-minute commute. Okay. And then all of a sudden they wake up with extreme back pain or pain going down the leg. And I find this wallet size adhesion like I did in Steven the other day. Okay. And the side of their hip, smoky.
For people.
Yeah. So, to me, once again, we're looking at specific areas in the fascia and where these nerves are coming from and where they're going. And then all we want to do is get some light pressure in there at first, then deeper pressure as we move on, and keep on increasing our range of motion with stretches by nanometers. Okay, where everybody just wants to go for the big one or get something assisted in the gym, right? Like just push me down as far as I can go. The body doesn't work like that. It's going to become very defensive. Okay, like I said, if I'm immediately going for Mark's drink, he's going to grab my wrist and be like, no. But if I'm inching over, and then I'm kind of like, hey, Nsima, what are you doing over there? And then Mark's looking over, and then I'm grabbing his drink, and he doesn't even know that it's gone. That's what you kind of, the fascia is like a scared little puppy. Its primary response to anything it doesn't understand is when in doubt, lock it out. If I didn't understand that movement, or if something pinched on a squat or a deadlift, if it didn't feel something right, just lock it down. That's all we care about. Pain is protection. We want to make sure that no further damage is done.
With like, let's just say you worked on my back and you found a bunch of that old dried up nasty fascia and you start working on it. Again, I have no idea if this is possible or how this works, but like, where does that dry fascia go? Like, can it travel and start hurting a different part of my body? Like, does it like literally like flow throughout like under my skin or anything like that?
Not necessarily. So you break the adhesion up and what happens is you get that area becomes more lubricated and hydrated. Okay. But what can also happen is when I open that area up, a lot more slack is going to be given to the system. Okay. And what I find is that people come to see me for one very specific problem, Okay, they can point exactly to their pain and say, this is what's going on with me. This is where I hurt. And by the time I'm done working with them, we've opened up 12 to 14 other different structures. Okay, we've addressed 12 to 14 other different problems. Okay, so we got to get out of the thought process of, I have one problem in one area. Okay, to me, like you said something about sciatica, right? And it's like, to me, sciatica is just like chaos in the human body. Like, you've been doing something drastically wrong for a really long period of time for the body to get into such a poor arrangement. Okay, so back to the adhesion part, when you're opening up one area, it's like if I have two adhesions right here, and then I open one up right here, I'm gonna have a lot less tension in this area, and this guy's gonna kind of semi-relax. So you'll get a little less pain in that area, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't need attention anymore. You still need to go and provide attention to some of these other areas, but all it is just kind of like dialing pressure down in specific areas of the body, dialing down the stress response that the fascia is basically creating based off of your movement or your lifestyle. Okay, and it becomes kind of a cornucopia of kind of like a cornucopia of returning to health, because there's so many different areas that you can kind of like get into and express and whatnot, where the body is constantly remodeling itself every single day. Okay, and that's, you know, like Nsima said, he's like, you got to be consistent. Okay, but it's kind of like, ain't nobody got time for that, right? Like, I got my kids and this, and it's like, all you need is 2 to 4 minutes, just 2 to 4 minutes, and then it becomes, oh man, I'm just so tired, I'm gonna lay down and watch Netflix, right? And your body's arranging itself in an even more poor position now. Okay, so really, it comes down to a dogged persistence to fighting against gravity, fight against movement, fighting against poor arrangement, poor posture, things like that. And we're just not taught to care about it.
We got a couple things on the desk here. This is something that somebody sent me called Just a Grip. It's like a little vice grip type thing, and you can squeeze your calves or shins or forearm or wherever you can figure out where to put it. I think we have a Supernova over here from our boy Kelly Surrett. Surrett also has the butt plug, but it's not called a butt plug, but looks like a butt plug. What's that one?
Le peanut.
What's that one called?
The peanut.
Is that what it is called? The peanut?
It's not called a
Yeah,
super
it's the
duper nova.
peanut.
Oh.
I'm gonna grab one more thing, actually.
And then there's this thing, the So Right, which is pretty amazing. That has been something that's pretty awesome for me, especially when you explained like, oh, you might want to try it on like a flat bench press, and then laying over it and I could relax a lot more and I actually get a lot more out of it. Whereas when I try to lay on it on the ground, I'm like, yeah. And it's like, it doesn't really serve its purpose. I was also able to get into the adductors with this, and then you were saying there's ways to use this against the wall and all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah, everywhere. I did a bunch of content creation for So Right for about 6 months. If you check out their page, you're going to see me. I did like 110 1-hour Instagram lives for them and whatnot.
Wow.
Showing people every single day how to use these tools in order to get out of pain. And one of the biggest gripes that the quote unquote professionals are going to have, right, is like, you can't palpate or release the adductor. I'm sorry, the psoas, the hip flexors. Okay, you can't release them because they're too deep, blocked by the intestines and a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, and one of the reasons why I know that that's just straight up baby talk is because they're not mentioning the fascia. So what a tool like this does is it works on the fascia of the hip flexors. Okay, and that's all you need to be concerned with. Like I said, I don't care about the muscle. It's a dumb piece of meat. It's just sitting there doing what it's told. And if the fascia says it's healthy, it's going to be fine. Muscles don't get tight. Muscles can't hold contractions. Only fascia can. Okay, when you hook up a muscle to electricity, then it can hold a contraction. But if you're not hooking it up to electricity when you're relaxed, it's not going to be able to hold itself unless a fascia is commanding it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we would look at something like, I mean, even in like somebody who will play golf and somebody that will play tennis at the same time. A lot of rotation there, okay? And they're right-handed. So what's going to end up happening is their left side back is going to get tight and glute, and their right side hip flexor is going to get tight, okay? But it's not the muscle tissue, it's the fascia. So we get in there with something like the psoarite, okay, and we're applying pressure to the fascia, so the fascia understands this communication and says, yes, I know I'm tight, I'm going to relax. And all of a sudden the body gets into a better arrangement and you have less pain, okay? But just like using the supernova or whatnot, you can use this up against a wall, you can use it on a bench. And the reason for doing these things is because the body is going to hold itself in a different arrangement in different arrangements. Okay, so the fascia is going to hold itself differently when you're laying on your stomach on the ground. It's going to hold itself differently when you're kneeling up against the wall. And then it's going to hold itself differently when you're standing up against the wall with the psoarite or a ball or anything else that you're using.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to use a bunch of different positions and you want to get into a bunch of different orientations with these things. Like you showed me even with the incline bench the other day. You're like, if I sit like this, like, dude, I'm hitting something in my adductor and it's like, it feels amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. If that's what does it for you, if that what works, do that in between sets of incline bench press or something like that. 2 minutes rest, you're doing 2 minutes on each adductor, do 4 sets, 5 sets, 6 sets, whatever. You're doing mobility in between rather than just sitting there texting someone on your phone or looking at some chick in the mirror or whatever. Be proactive. That's a fantastic way. But a lot of people are threatened by that, because it looks like the pink elephant. It's whoa, like that looks dangerous. And when I was doing that content for So Right, you would have people every once in a while, like I said, the quote unquote experts, and they would say that is so incredibly dangerous because you have your inferior vena cava leading down to the groinal consta nova, and that's going to impinge, and you could potentially paralyze your entire lower body. And I'm just like, this thing's been out for like 5-6 years. Like, surely if somebody was dumb enough to do that, it would have happened by now. Okay, and like, this is the thing. I work with a lot of UFC fighters. These guys are getting kicked in the abdomen with more force than you could ever produce with the psoarite, but that's not deemed as dangerous. That's just part of their job. They're not going to be occluding the superior inferior vena cava or, whatever else somebody wants to come up with. And for me, like, I just refuse to be a maxi. I refuse to say that this specific exercise won't help you ever, or this specific mobility product won't help you ever. I'm going to try everything, and I feel like there's a use case scenario for pretty much everything, okay? And really, it just comes down to experimenting constantly with your body and having fun, but not doing silly things like putting pressure in, like super hard pressure somewhere in the neck.
Yeah.
Like the neck's going to be a lot different than the hip flexors. You're going to have a lot less muscle tissue and everything like that in there, and you're going to be much closer to veins and arteries and lymph nodes. Okay, so we're going to put a little bit lighter pressure in here where we could put a little bit deeper pressure in the hip flexors.
Yeah.
So it just, like, it really comes down to being smart, having fun, and being inquisitive and constantly trying different angles and different ranges of motion and just getting into different positions in order to see if there's something you maybe haven't touched yet that needs attention.
Yeah. We had the anatomy of therapy guys on the show, Joe and Bobby, and they brought up something that is somewhat really annoying. Like, a lot of professionals within the field, fitness, whatever, that do body work, or, let's say they're at a certain point, they say things like, oh yeah, you can't get rid of adhesions in the body, or, oh yeah, this type of stretching is dangerous or useless or isn't beneficial. And I get all these anecdotes of people. I made something called Smooth Panther on YouTube. It's just a series of videos that's guided mobility, right? Countless people are saying, oh, I feel so much better. My body feels so much like I get better sleep. Or certain people, not even on that, but they do some stretching or they do some mobility stuff and they feel so much better. But so many people that are professionals are so quick to say, oh, that's just placebo. That's not actually really doing anything. They skip over things because there isn't research to back those things up. And it's like it negates an individual's want to adventure into trying those things that may be beneficial because there's not a fucking paper that backs it up. But once there's a paper, then everyone's going to be saying, oh yeah, this is totally awesome. This is something everyone should be doing.
I've been doing this for years.
And it's just, people, because people have anecdotes, it's crazy how people are so quick to just kick away that anecdote and say it's a placebo or nothing's really happening. Like when you mentioned you've gotten rid of adhesions.
Yeah.
There are certain people that I know that are within the field that are like, you can't get rid of adhesions.
Yeah. And I wish that, I feel bad for them. I really do. That tells me that they don't understand what they're working with in the human body, that they probably never have worked with a human body. Okay, because I get rid of adhesions all the time. I reduce especially adhesions all the time in short periods of time, like I am with Mark. Like his right hamstring is nowhere near as sensitive as it was the first day. His adductors are nowhere near as sensitive as they were the first couple days I worked on them. And that's a reduction in adhesive nature in the tissue. Okay, and there are people that I've worked on where you feel a bump, okay, you apply a little bit of pressure, it starts to twitch like mad, and then all of a sudden it dissolves and the bump ceased to exist.
There was a lump that was like the size of this can right here in the front of my quad. That thing sucked.
Yeah.
Have you working on that thing? That was,
Yeah.
it's like, what the hell is in there?
Yeah. All it is just, like I said, that tight, phlegmy looking tissue, okay, where it's not moving and all it's doing is being a burden on the rest of the system. And what it's burdening is that left hip flexor area, okay? So once again, we're looking downstream for a hip flexor issue. We're not actually looking into the hip flexor, all right? But for me, you know, I've been failed by the system so many times that I've constantly, ever since I was 14 or 15 years old, been looking for whatever I can find outside of it. And that's what led me down this path right now. And I'm not trying to hate on it. I'm somewhat hating on it when it comes to pain. Okay. And I was telling Mark, I believe 30 years from now, we're all going to be at a party and Nsima's going to be like, oh man, you know, my elbow's really bothering me from benching yesterday. I got to go and see the doctor.
I won't be saying that. This is another universe, but okay.
Yes. In the fifth dimension. So what Mark and I and everybody else in the circle, we're just going to laugh and be like, why would you go see a doctor for that? You know, like that's just what it comes down to, because what they're trying to do is use chemicals, okay, in the form of pills or shots in order to get rid of a myofascial issue, or in order to get rid of something that's just tight adhered to, something that you haven't been like moving very well, like poor posture or whatever, and all it requires is touch, you know? But when it comes to, I see a lot of that stuff on Instagram, and you'll never find me commenting on anything because I'm not the reply guy. I'm the guy that gets shit done, okay? So there's a gentleman that I follow, his name is Adam Meekins. He's the guy that loves calling people out. He's called Gary out. He's called a whole bunch of other people out.
Who is this guy?
And I'm just saying that was like one of the top comments on that the trauma video that we had pulled up earlier. Was just like somebody saying like, oh, I'm here because so and so was, you know, trashing this guy or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to pretend like I know what Gary felt. All I know is Gary can feel what I do, and in some cases, in most cases, he can probably feel a lot more. Okay, one of the first things he asked me when I went to the Human Garage, and he found out I was a body worker. Within the first minute he was working on me, I told him like, yeah, you know, I do body work in South Florida and blah, blah, blah. And he just leaned over kind of like real quietly and he goes, can you feel energy? And I go, yeah. And he's like, good. He goes, you're doing what you're supposed to do then. And I was kind of like, can't everybody? And apparently not so. So if Gary and Jason feel like what was going on there released trauma, I'm not going to judge that. Okay. But when people are only dealing with what you can see, touch, taste, feel, and hear, they're going to look at something like that as absolute trash and be like, oh my God, come on, get out of here. Okay. But what I was getting to is just the other day, Adam put up a post from Squat University guy where he was actually saying, you know, you shouldn't be doing Jefferson curls because it compromises the lower back and such.
Yeah, the
and
main thing
such,
from
and-
Squat University was just not using too much weight specifically with that movement. Yeah.
Right. Obviously, we don't want to periodize to a 315-pound Jefferson
Correct.
curl. Okay. So once again, it comes down to, you know, common sense. All right. And only one time in my entire career has somebody semi-hurt themselves rolling out. Okay. It was a gentleman in Hawaii. He was having the sciatica pain. I found out that it wasn't sciatica. It was coming from the glute minimus. So I told him, I said, roll on the ball for 1 to 4 minutes. I roll on a lacrosse ball for 1 to 4 minutes. For some reason, he thought I said 1 to 4 hours. And he said that he rolled for 1 hour 4 times. And he's like, bro, my whole hip, it's bruised. And I'm like, you did that from 4 minutes of rolling? And he's like, nah, bro, I did it for 4 hours. And I'm like, why would you do it for 4 hours? Of course, if you pummel yourself for 4 hours with any object, you're gonna bruise this specific area. Okay. But seeing Adam put that post up, I was kind of like, you know, I love Squat University and I enjoy Adam's posts, but I was kind of glad that he was calling that out. Because for me, there's a lot of people that Jefferson curls have helped take a lot of back and hamstring pain out of their body.
Yeah.
More so than I could even do putting pressure and stretching them. You know, I get to a point where we open up the adhesions and everything's good. And then I let the exercise and the weight pull the rest of the tissue out of the system to neutrality. Okay. And when you see, my daughter's 3.5 years old. Okay. When you see her move, I mean, she's squatting all the way down. The way that she translates her spine sometimes, even though I have really good mobility, I'm like, dang, man, I didn't know the body could do that. You know? And it's like she can still, we're getting ready for bed or something. She's like laying in bed and she'll just be messing around and she'll grab her foot and put it over her head. You know? And it's like, these are the things that the body have been born with. But literally, in most cases, by the time we're like 16, 17, 18, you know, just getting out of high school, we've lost like 50% of that. And you lose another 50% by the time you're 30. And then, you know, you're like a steel post, you know, that basically you bend and you break type of a thing. So for me, once again, it's just not becoming that maximalist. And even though I believe pressure does rule the body, okay, we know that fascia has more pressure sensors than pain sensors.
Yeah.
Okay. I still believe in movement. I still believe you have to be sleeping well. I still believe that you have to be eating well. You know, and people come to me all the time and they're like, you know, how quickly am I going to be able to get out of this? And I say, well, there's a bunch of different factors. How are you sleeping? How are you eating? And I go on and on and on. And they're like, bad, poor, worse, not at all. And it's just like, well, this is probably going to take a while. Okay. Yeah. But when we tighten up these other aspects, because it's bigger than any one system, the body is bigger than any one modality. Okay. You know, Bruce Lee said, I fear the man who practiced 10,000 kicks or one kick 10,000 times. I'm sorry. I would like everybody to be trying to open up their body in 10,000 different ways, right? Just never get stuck in one thing. Like I've graduated to almost using everything with the bar. Okay. Even when I'm trying to get into my scalenes, CrossFit, sometimes we have these wads and whatnot that have 100 cleans in them. I wake up the next day, my scalenes are tight, my traps are tight. I mean, it's just like radiating, you know? I'll use the bar to grind in these specific areas all on each side. And it feels wonderful after, but I know how much pressure I'm putting in there. I'm not, you know, cutting off any blood vessels or whatnot. But I still sometimes will get down on the So-Right. I'll get down on the Supernova. I'll get down on a foam roller. And I just experiment. Like, what what is this going to be able to tell me about my body today that, maybe another tool didn't teach me the day before.
Yeah.
And that's all it is, man. It's just your body's the biggest experiment that you can ever work on and just continuously have fun with.
I like what you're saying there, because sometimes somebody will say that they don't have enough of something. I don't have enough money or something like that. And what comes to my mind is you don't have enough ideas.
Right.
If you have ideas, you can turn those ideas into something and you can profit.
Right.
You can profit from those things. And when it comes to the body, it seems like there's infinite things that you can try, that you can kind of mess around with. And eventually you'll find stuff that feels right. What are your thoughts on like Starrett mentioning things like having a super friend, like having Nsima and I just like work on each other, like, an elbow in the back or a heel into the hamstring type of thing.
Also, spouses, this is a very fun way for you guys to do some things to each other, while also freeing up some tissues.
That's right.
I'm actually going to be creating a course for spouses. So there you go. They're coming soon. So
one thing leads to another.
Yeah. When your wife isn't in the mood.
Is it titled Coming Soon?
It can.
we could. I don't think I would get the genre of people that I'm looking for, but yeah, definitely.
All right.
And it'll be with your instructor Nsima. There you go. There you go.
Hey Sam, if you want to duel on this, we can make a tape.
So because my brain went south after that, I forgot what we were. Haven't seen my wife in 7 days.
Damn, I need to get home. So you got the magic touch, and maybe other people don't.
Super friend.
Exactly.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. The whole thing is just don't be too rough. And you're going to get bros and they're going to find an adhesion in the hamstring and you're in the middle of the gym, maybe working on each other. And it's going to be funny, right? The thing about pressure in the human body, you put too much and your body thinks that it's incurring an injury, okay? You don't put enough and your body is just like, well, that tickles. I'm not going to really change my arrangement. So you need to have this kind of finesse aspect to where you're constantly checking in with the person that you're working on. And one of the biggest tell-alls, there's two of them, okay? You want to look at like the opposite leg if you're working on one, or opposite arm or foot or something like that.
Foot or hand, and you see it going all weird.
And then you also want to look at
shit.
Yep, you also want to look at the eyes, okay? The eyes will tell, think about it. When something starts to hurt, you're either going to be like, or you're just going to be like, either the eyes are going to get really big or you're going to close and start breathing and start focusing. So breath could be another one. When I was working on Mark, Chris, you guys knew when I got into those tight corners, you were like, okay, let me start breathing. All right. Cause that's going to help the system relax and we're going to get more done. Okay. So my biggest thing when you have a super friend, just don't turn it into a joke. Don't turn it into playtime. Because yes, you can actually make something worse. If the body is guarding an area and you come in there with a bazooka, Ric Flair style, drop a chair or an elbow like right into an adhesion, right? Then the body's just going to be like, dude, I didn't like that. Yeah. And it's going to tighten up or stiffen up even more. Okay. Where if you go in gently and you're like, typically people who can't take pain very well, you're looking at between 4 to 6 on a pain scale of 10 that you want to work around. And I mean, with guys like you, I'll push it up to around 8s, so we'll work between like 6 to an 8 for the most part. So those are some guidelines. Don't make it playtime. Don't press so hard to get such a funny reaction out of your friend, out of your super friend or whatever, and work in between those 4 to 6 or 6 to 8 ranges and you're good. I truly feel that it's silly more people, especially couples, are not working on themselves.
Yeah.
I'll have significant others come with a wife or a husband that's having pain, and even in the husband's case, they'll be like, dude, I don't know how this is appointment 8 for the day. Like if I work on my wife for 5 minutes on her trap, my hand is cramping. And I just say, well, I guess I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing with my life and my time, because my hands don't cramp from that. They never have. All right. But really, it just comes down to those couple of things that I mentioned, just guidelines. But yeah, I absolutely believe that, especially if you are a parent and your kid is very athletic, like what's wrong with being like, hey son, come here, lay on the bed, and I'm just gonna kind of like search around in your quads and in your calf muscles to see if there's anything that doesn't belong. And you get in there and the tissue feels good for the most part, except you got this one little rough patch. Apply a little bit of pressure, 4 to 6, something like that. Let the body work itself out. And you just potentially got rid of a knee injury that might have occurred in like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
But like, I'm going to be working on, I don't know if my daughter is going to be an athlete, but I'm going to be working on my daughter probably at least once or twice a week when she starts to do athletics and whatnot. And, when I was working with Devon Best, he was a wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. He would go into practice on Friday and be practicing like it was Monday. And all of his teammates started to kind of like catch on and be like, hey, bro, what are you doing? Like, how come you're practicing so well on a Friday after, we had a game on Sunday and then practice all week? My guy, CK, he does body work 3-4 times a week on me. And I realized, I was like, if I get Devon's deadlift 5 pounds heavier, 10 pounds heavier, maybe the groceries feel lighter next time he goes to the supermarket. Okay. The guy's at the top of the top, but his body's his paycheck. So if I keep his tissue open and free, he's not going to get injured. He's not going to be running and pull a hamstring. And then he's out the next 2 or 3 games or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So really for me, it just comes down to keeping the fascial system healthy. If you got a friend that can work on you and you can work on them without, being silly or whatnot, then go ahead and do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, don't make Instagram videos about it. You, Graham,
Right.
Mark, all just fucking coming and attacking me, squeezing me as hard as freaking possible. Especially Graham. He would just get like all up in the
Oh,
pecs.
that's a massage. That's different.
That's massage.
Okay, same thing then.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
massage therapy.
It's not fun.
We're just trying to
it to
get you.
me.
We're just trying to get you an erection. That's all we're trying to do.
I'd love if you guys massage my traps.
Yeah,
But
see?
no one ever wants to do it to me. I'm sitting here. Do it to me.
Sitting there just waiting. He's just asking for it.
I want it.
Because I don't want it, I'm not going to do it back.
Well, I won't do it to you, but you can do it to me.
Andrew's complaining about getting massaged.
He is. He doesn't
That's
like
where
it.
this show is gone.
We'll stop. We'll
God
stop.
damn it.
Massage, you guys are like, oh, you still missed.
0 for 2.
And Graham was the worst. He would like dig his finger into my pec,
He's trying to
and it
prove a
would
point.
like go out my back. Like it was just fucking.
Yeah, so
not
here's
That's
the
an
thing.
interesting thing right there, what you just said.
Got strong thumbs.
Here's the thing. You can put enough pressure on any of the area of the body to make it hurt really, really bad.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so just don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy. And like I was saying earlier, your friend's like, man, I got something in my pec. Can you try and work it out? And then you feel something, and you're like, oh, what is it? Right there? Ha ha ha. And then you just drive your finger or your thumb or your elbow down as hard as you can
We may have done that to Andrew a couple times. Now I think
in
about
order
There's
to get a
fuck
reaction.
ton of video footage of it. Yes.
So shame on you guys.
What are some?
Shame on you.
I know some of your thoughts surrounding energy and surrounding like we went on a walk one day and we were talking about like left side male female type stuff and then the lower back, and can you share some of that with us? And then
Oh boy.
I know I know it paints us into a weird corner.
Yeah.
But I think it is important for people to hear some of these things because I don't know, I tend to be just open to these possibilities.
So we'll tell everybody to get their tinfoil hats on right now.
Mine's
okay.
on.
Get the tinfoil hat on. There you go, Nsima. There are certain representations or classifications in the human body that have been known for quite some time, for a really, really long period of time. And like I said, as medicine kind of advances, are we really getting smarter with shots, pills, robots, things like that? What I feel is we're actually getting further and further away from what nature and the body intended, because we didn't have these things like meridians, Chinese meridians in the body. They've been around for 4,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
They're real. They're identifiable. I've tried to open somebody's quadratus lumborum. It's a muscle in the lower back on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, okay? Try to open it up. And the dang thing is just being non-responsive, okay? Say, all right, start asking a couple of questions. Oh, so you got in an accident 6 years ago. You crashed your car. You almost hit a lady and killed her, okay? That was just walking on the sidewalk. You went into immediate, like, fear response. And what I found was that when I started working on the gallbladder meridian, that quadratus lumborum opened up. Okay, so that's number one. We're looking at meridians in the human body, and we have one that's attached to every single organ. And when these organs get into stress, they call out to the neuromuscular system for help. Okay, we've known this for 4,000 years. Chinese medicine.
This is some of the stuff that Ben Clarefield worked on me with, where he like pushed on my nose and some of that stuff, and some of the stuff that Charles Poliquin did with jamming the pen cap into the bed nail with my finger.
Sure. So emotions, fascia does not have any eyes. Okay, it can't see what's going on in the outer world. So it relies on input from our emotions in order to get a sense of what's happening. Some of the worst people that I work on have absolutely no physical injuries. It's all emotional trauma. Okay? Worked with a lot of addicts. Okay, drug addicts and whatnot. They haven't played sports. They're not bench pressing 800, but their entire body is filled with adhesions. What gives? It's all emotional trauma. Okay? So how you feel with your environment, okay, gets translated into how healthy your fascia and your organs are. All right? So a lot of people are in this constant fight or flight. They're locked in this adrenal phase that they can't get out of, because the body experiences everything as a threat. Okay? And like I said, fascia doesn't have eyes. It doesn't realize that I can just go to the supermarket and get some food. Okay? It realizes, like, I've been fasting too much. Okay? I surely must be starving, and there must not be any food available anywhere. And in an inexperienced dieter, that can create a lot of problems with the stomach meridian. It can create a lot of problems with emotions surrounding food, okay, that then translate to restriction in specific areas of the body, okay? So I'm sure you guys have heard of people doing body work on somebody and releasing trauma, and then all of a sudden they're just like crying uncontrollably.
Yeah.
All right, it doesn't happen. I'm not going to sit here and say it happens every day, but I would probably say maybe 2-3 times a year I'll get a client like that, you know, where I'll press on something and I'll just get an immediate release. And then all of a sudden a lot of weird emotional stuff starts going on with them. And I'm like, it's okay, you know, just let it pass through, you know, be the observer. We're getting that out of your body, okay? And all of these emotions that we have, they start off as little neutrinos in our brain, and they travel down the nerve and they go to specific areas. You get really, really angry, and you're going to get tight in the head, neck, and shoulders. Now, you're not angry anymore. Where did all that stress go? It didn't go anywhere. Not if you're not working it out and applying a little bit of pressure, easing the tension in the system. It stays. But the feeling went away. So everybody thinks that it's gone, right? And it's not. So that's number one. Emotions, or your perception of your environment, will directly equate to the health of your internal system.
Yeah.
Okay? Even if there's no threat. And I told Mark the other day, I think it was you, that our body hasn't really caught up with the evolutionary times. Okay? It's not really, didn't subscribe to that newsletter yet. There are studies that have been done that show our brain lights up more fear sensors with the picture of a snake compared to the picture of a gun. Now, a gun, if you got a good enough sniper, like shout out to Chris Kyle, right? From a mile away, can kill me instantly. Snake has to be like 2-3 feet away. And then in some instances, I think he even said you're not going to really die right away. Like it would take a long time. And you might even be able to come back from it and be totally fine in some cases. Okay. So our body really hasn't caught on to the evolutionary times yet and whatnot. When we look at other representations in the body, the left side of the body is female, the right side of the body is male. Now, here's the thing. My dad was never very supportive of me when I was growing up. He wasn't a bad person, okay? But he wanted me to do certain things. He wanted me to be a golfer, and I wanted to be a football player. So when I chose to play football instead of golf, my dad was kind of like, I'm not really going to support you anymore, type of a thing, okay? He was like, why do you want to play football? You're going to sit the bench. And that gave me enough fuel to be starting at 5 positions within 3 games. Okay? So what ended up hurting first on me was my right knee. Okay? And then there are people that come to me where they have a problem with their left knee or their left hip. Okay? And nothing that I'm doing is working and I can't figure it out. All right? And I'm like, tissue, everything is saying that, all systems go, we're good. And then I'll ask them, I go, do you have a problem with any females in your life? I just be like, gosh, like which ones don't I have a problem with? And I'm like, did you have a problem with your mother? Yeah, of course. My mom always told me to be anorexic and said that, you should, that you're not pretty unless if you're 65 pounds and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, this is beyond what I'm going to be able to do for you. You need to do some emotional work surrounding that because that's the only reason that I can think of that this is occurring right now. Okay. We can look at other things in the body, like there are representations in the astral plane saying, your left heel opening up or having pain in your left heel means that you're growing spiritually. Okay. Anecdotal, I have no studies, once again, that show this, but just like I disclaimed earlier, life is more exciting when you're looking at things that you can't touch, taste, feel, hear, and see. Okay? Pain in the right side back is typically characteristic of too much physical work in the world. Okay? So
meaning you're doing too much physical work?
Yes, correct. Yeah. There's a book by Dr. John Sarno. I think it's called
just literally called back or healing back pain. Sorry. Is that what? Yeah, healing back pain. It's super simple. I'm halfway through it right now.
Yep. And he says, what's that?
Something about the lower back and support
right.
too, right?
So your lower back represents support in your body. Okay. And he says, people come into his practice and they're thinking that he's going to do like this wondrous work or something like that. And he'll look at him straight in the face and be like, how are you not supported in your life? And people will just break down crying, and all of a sudden their back pain starts to relieve. Okay. I had persistent back pain for some reason that I could never get through that I could never get rid of. It was just operating in the background. I'm like, I don't understand it. I can fix other people, but why can't I fix myself? Well, in my previous marriage, I wasn't supported very well. And it never equated, like A and B never came together for me. And I was like, okay, this is really strange. Got the divorce, found a different, wonderful woman. And I haven't had a single back issue since because she's even more supportive than I am. and I try to support people as much as possible. So once again, Nsima, I'm sorry. The studies N equals 2 right now. Okay. Like that's all I can give you. Okay. But like you said, everybody's looking for that specific study by Johns Hopkins University where I can measure something. Okay. And when it comes to the human body, there are certain things that cannot be measured. Okay. So the next thing we would get to is scalar waves or scalar energy. Scalar waves and scalar energy reside in all things. Okay, they can be measured in everything, even this desk. okay, has a specific scalar frequency. All right. And what we find is that scalar energy is typically 5 or 6 times greater than the accompanying wave that can be measured through like EMF meters and whatnot. And this is one of the things that makes 5G so dangerous, not even to just our fascia, but nature in general. 4G, I believe, was 900 hertz. Okay. When we went to 5G, we were at 30 gigahertz or 30,000 hertz. So we didn't just 1x or 2x, we 30x'd from there. Now times that by 6. Okay, and you're looking at 180,000 hertz. All right, in a scalar wave form. Okay, so the thing about scalar waves in nature is that they are different when they're being emitted by a rock. They're different than if they're being emitted by water, by air, okay, the sunlight, a tree, grass, sand, gravel. All of these different coherent waves, okay, in the form of scalar waves are hitting our body, and our body recognizes it, okay? When any one signal becomes too loud, all of a sudden that becomes a problem for the body, and we introduce disease, okay? So with 5G coming out and having this 180,000 hertz bombarding right around the same time as that other disease showed up, okay, everybody wants to say that it's new, but what I point to is the health of our tissue, the health of our body, and ultimately the health of our fascia, because studies show that our fascia and our DNA communicate via scalar waves. Okay, and scalar waves, some of the interesting things about them is they're not bound by time. Okay, they reside in a 4th dimension. So if you listen to guys like Dr. Jerry Unfiltered, what they call it is the God wave or the God particle. Okay, where what I believe is that fascia and DNA are literally our antennas to God. Okay, if you want to start getting like way out there and put another tinfoil hat on and whatnot, where you look at something like Dr. Joe Dispenza or Lynn McTaggart, okay, and they talk about the field. Now we know that this exists. Okay, that's stuff that we do have studies on. Einstein was doing those studies. You're looking at spooky action from a distance. Take 2 particles that were conjoined, separate them, rotate them in the same manner, okay? Take one and rotate it the other way. The other one changes instantaneously. Okay? Well, there's nothing connecting those two, so how is that happening? Right? And life becomes more interesting all of a sudden than what we can see, touch, taste, feel, and hear. All right? So some of the other things that that I didn't mention about fascia is the only thing that can't be removed from the body. Okay? It's the only thing that cannot be removed from the human body. We can take brains out, we can take livers out, eyes out, hearts, everything else can be removed.
Too connected?
Yeah, it's because it's interwoven and whatnot. But even if you were to just cut the skin open and then try to grab the fascia, it's just going to continuously melt through the hand. It just you cannot grab it. It's like trying to grab water. Okay. And you cannot remove it from the human body. Mm-hmm. Okay, so would it make sense from a spiritual standpoint, right, to make the antenna to God not be able to be removed from the human body? Okay, to always have that spirit connection there. When the fascia dries out or it's time to go, then you're done. And the biggest trick, I guess, that has ever been played on us is when you go into anatomy class, the professor is going to say, cut open the skin, okay, take the fascia away and throw it in the garbage. We want to get to the important stuff, the muscle tissue, the blood vessels, the nerves. But what we find out is that living fascia is like apples to oranges to fascia when it's dead and dried up. Mm-hmm. It's just, and that's when you can remove it. It's just like, kind of like this layer of garbage. You cut it, you throw it out, and all of a sudden we're at the good stuff. Okay, so it's one of the biggest tricks that's ever been played on us from like an anatomy point of view, right? But all of this stuff is conjecture. Nobody's going to be studying it. You can't patent anything that I just talked about or said, because it's something that I feel that I even have difficulty putting into words most of the times when I'm working with people. How true, or how much truth can be behind it, right? And really, the only thing that I would ask the people that are listening right now is if they can sense my words as they're coming out. Am I making stuff up? Or does it sound like I'm really trying to turn you on to an incredibly cool aspect of your body that if you keep healthy, you're just going to have an absolutely fantastic life. You know, and that's really all it comes down to. I'm not selling a course on, scalar waves or anything like that. But when I started working with the body and I started feeling things that didn't make sense to what I already knew, and then I started going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole looking for explanations, these are the things that it led me to, and it's as close as I can get to what I feel when I'm working on tissue in the human body. And one of the other things that, I don't know if I told you, Mark or Chris, but when I started working on people a long time ago, it took me, first off, 4 to 5 years to really know what I was doing with the human body, helping other people get out of pain. But I would be working on somebody's left hamstring, and all of a sudden I would hear in my brain, it would say right glute. And I, for years, just ignored that. I'm like, why am I thinking that? And then all of a sudden I started paying attention to that voice. And when I would go to the right glute would open up, and then the left hamstring would open up even easier. So it's kind of like this ESP type of thing coming from their body into mine. And it's like, you don't want to go around telling everybody like that, because now all of a sudden you're that woo-woo guy, right? And it's just like, okay, bro, good story.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
But it might be the way someone would explain playing the guitar. Like, oh, I don't know. It just always made sense to me. I hit this string, and then it came to me to hit the other ones in this sequence.
It's a flow state, right? And when you're in a flow state, right, what are we attuned to? We're attuned to the present moment, most importantly, right? Where everything exists, right? Where the field, you got the past, present, future, all the information in that area in the field, right? And all information exists in there simultaneously. And our brains can't conceptualize that because, of course, there has to be time. Okay? We didn't start the podcast right now. We started it a couple hours ago, right? So surely, that doesn't make any sense. But when we're looking at fascia, when we're looking at DNA, I believe that there are greater concepts than just what we can point to, measure, and touch, taste, see, feel, and hear. Okay? It goes way beyond that. And really, with more devices and things that we have nowadays, we become less and less attuned to those things, and even less and less in tune with our body until the pain gets so loud where we all of a sudden can't ignore it. Mm-hmm. And then other aspects of health say, oh, we can get rid of this, immediately for you just by taking this pill. Okay, but it's like, I don't want to be on pills for the rest of my life, maybe. And, with your brother's documentary too, we see how that ends up and whatnot. So what I'm here to say is that there are easier, more permanent ways, just by working on your own body, caring for yourself. All right. And trust me, things will turn out for the better. You're going to start to like how you feel.
What you got over there, Andrew?
So my low back, it hurts to the left. I was in a previous marriage where I got no support, but I'm currently in a great marriage where I have amazing support, but I still got the left low back pain.
So your issue is structural. And it, like I said, when I was working on my own back pain, I couldn't find anything that was dictating that I had an issue in my myofascial system. So I didn't have any adhesions. I wasn't misaligned, anything like that. So what it would be is just an overload of stress in that one focal point, one area, where I already identified that your issue is structural.
And you were just able to identify that by just seeing my left shoulder
Just
a little
looking,
bit high.
just by looking at you. My wife gets irritated. We go to the beach, we go to the mall, we go out to eat, and I'll just be sitting there like, that person has to have wicked back pain. And she's like, can you stop assessing people? Like, that's all I do.
That's so funny.
It's
You're
just
like, excuse me, sir, can I work on your left calf
Yeah.
for just like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
This is driving me nuts.
Like your left glute just told me your left calf is in a lot of pain, so I have to, like they're calling me right now.
yeah.
Did you see it from like his upper body or
Yeah.
what was it?
Yeah, his
Yeah,
upper body.
as soon as I just like shook his hand and he was just like, "Yep, I can see what's going on here." I'm like, damn. Well, I asked that about like the traumatic side of things. John and Bobby from the Anatomy of Therapy were here, and I don't know if they were being like extra nice or what, but when we were talking about my back, I can't remember if it was John or Bobby. They were just like, "Oh yeah, actually, you do have a bit of a unique situation." You know, like it's pretty like they put me in like the I guess top 20% of uniqueness for back pain. Like everybody else has usually like the same thing. Like, and then what you have going on where, well, they said I had like one strong vertebrae, one really weak one strong one on top of it. And then when they said that, I was just like, fuck, man. Like, I know they're being nice. It might even be trying to be extra nice by being like, no, dude, trust me. Like, you actually do have some legit pain. I'm like, I wish they didn't say anything because literally since then, my back has been the worst it's been for the past like a long time. Now, that could be because I've been laid out in bed. Okay. That's definitely going to be it. But as soon as they said that night I went home, my back was really fucked up. And I was like, God damn it. So I've been trying to ignore it and trying to get back to my go-to stuff, but it was weird. It like was like instantly like pain went up.
Sure. So here's the thing. Has anybody ever read You Are the Placebo by
Yeah.
Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yep.
Love that
right
shit.
in the office. Yep.
Okay. So you read that too?
Yeah.
Okay. So he talks about a story in there of a particular gentleman who went in for a regular checkup, and they said that they found cancerous tumors by his trachea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they gave him a surgery, and they were like, okay, you're good, but I think that we think that, you know, you're still going to have a problem with this, and you may have about 6 months to live. Okay. So this gentleman says, well, you know what? I love living with my son and his wife. If these are my final days, that's what I want to do. So he goes down, tells his son and his wife, you know, I don't have very much longer to live. I have cancer in my throat, whatever. And I just want to be with you guys and be comfortable because I love you so much. So they identify now with his diagnosis, okay? And he goes to a new doctor there, and the doctor's looking at his medical history and says, well, you know what? There's nothing that I can really do for you. I can just kind of make you feel more comfortable if you want and give you some medication. So the guy's like, yeah, anything you want to do, doc. So you have now a professional identifying with the label, okay? Once again, we're going to put the third tin hat on now for today. So he said, he told his son and his daughter-in-law, you know what, if I can just make it to Christmas with you guys, I'll be the happiest ever. And then I feel like I can go in peace. All right. So I think this guy died on like January 3rd or January 6th or something like that. They did an autopsy on him and found no cancer in his body whatsoever. Okay. And like Dr. Joe has plenty of these stories in all of his books. All right. And it comes down to the power of the mind. So if this thing right here gives you a placebo of feeling like your hip flexor has opened up and it's freer, I'll take that placebo all day long, right? Because it's something that helped. What is a placebo, right? It's something that technically didn't happen that happened, right? But that's when you're measuring something you can taste, test, feel, hear, see, etc. Okay? In the human body, there's a greater control mechanism at play. It's our fascia, it's our mind, it's our DNA, and they don't play by those rules.
Yeah.
Okay? So if I'm going to use a tool and it makes me feel better, then I don't really feel like it's a placebo. Okay? Or you can go and get worked on by somebody like when I started working with Chris. Okay? I looked at him immediately. I said, bro, you're all out of alignment. I'm going to, press into some areas, get your body structurally a lot better, and you're going to feel a lot better. And he told me that anytime he would get worked on by somebody, the first thing that they would say is, God damn, dude, you're the tightest person I've ever worked on. And that to me is a disclaimer saying, I'm not really going to be able to help you. Okay. But I don't know, because you paid me right now, I'll do some work and whatnot, but just don't expect anything. You know what I'm saying? So you get a gentleman like Andrew, somebody comes and says, oh yeah, you're unique. And what I really wanted to ask is like, what does unique mean? You call somebody unique or special. It's kind of like if your name is Zodabarts, like, oh, that's a really unique name. And that person's sitting there like, what do you mean by that? It reminds me of a meme. It said something like, the only time you call somebody buddy is when you're just about to get in a fight. And I was like, I call people buddy all the time. It's like, hey, what's up, buddy? Bam, cold cock or something like that. And I was like, so I asked one of my clients, because I was like, I text people and call people buddy all the time. I'm like, does this sound like I want to start a fight? And he's like, no, dude, I never thought about it like that. But it's kind of funny when you think about it. So that's really, you gotta listen to practitioners speak and whatnot, where if they're not open to be like, you know what, this is a tough case, but I believe in my methods. And if you believe in my methods too, I feel like we're going to be able to get this thing taken care of.
When I visited my dad in the hospital years ago, he was there for like 70 days. It was just like surgery after surgery, and it was just a big mess.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was. I remember communicating with one of the doctors, and they were just like, we'd never seen this before. And I just went right to my mom, and I was just like, just as soon as possible, need to get him out of here, because I was like, that's completely impossible. Everything that's happened to humans surgically and that's happened in hospitals has already happened. Like we're too many years down the road for somebody to be like, I've never seen that before. And even just from coaching people and having people come into this gym and they're like, I want to deadlift 700 pounds or I want to deadlift 800 pounds. It's not uncommon for us. We see it all the time, or some of the feats that people might do in CrossFit, or some of the things that you've been able to help people with. So somebody having a frozen shoulder, you're like, frozen shoulder, it seems like a myth almost to me, because I can fix it in like 5 days. So it's an interesting thing, like in the medical community, when you hear somebody saying, yeah, that something is unique, that is I think it's a good red flag. The other thing is too, is I also would wonder why there's not follow-up beyond that. That seems unique to me, but let me check with, I got a couple colleagues that I think would know a little bit more about your situation, because I haven't seen that before, but a lot of people don't have the strength or courage to do that.
No, it's kind of like the God complex. Like, I know everything. And I'm the first person to tell people I don't know everything. Every single body that I work on is a teacher, and I'm a student every single day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff. Okay. But there are still, 1 or 2 cases a year. I'll see something that I haven't seen before. And I'll never tell somebody I don't know what's going on with you, so I can't help you. I'll say, you know what? I've never seen that before, but come on in. Let me get my hands on you and we'll figure it out. And all of a sudden they're kind of like that first level of defense, they can exhale like, okay, like this guy is honest and he's willing to give it a try. Rather than, there are people like, oh, I can fix anything, or people who say that and then, all of a sudden you're showing up and they're like, oh, you're really tight. And, you can just kind of feel the weight of their words, right? One of the things that I want people to get away from is stop trying to identify with everything people are saying and get a feel sense of their words when they're talking. Okay. I learned that when my mom was going through cancer. All right. And you're just like, the doctor doesn't even believe in what he's telling you right now. And my mom's like, yeah, I got that sense too. And a lot of people they'll just take that, you know, in its form and be like, yeah, okay, the doctor said that this is what's going to happen, so this is what's going to happen. You know, and that's not just, I mean, that's not just for what doctors or anybody else is doing. That's in life. It's called our intuition, right? And the way that I work on the body is very intuitive driven. And people have said, why don't you create a clinic with 60 other practitioners so you can help a lot more people? And I said, because I don't know how to teach intuition. I don't know how to take a practitioner, like get their education away from them and say everything that you learned up until this point, throw it all out. And this is what you are going to do when you work on people. You are going to let your touch and your intuition be your guide. You know, I don't know how to teach anybody else that. So,
but a lot of that intuition you're talking about, like you were mentioning, you're working on somebody and then something says right glute. There must be some, like with your decades of working on people, you see something so much that you can't maybe explain it, but there's something you look at that's like, that's common.
Oh, yeah.
Left glute. You know what I mean? And it's like a lot of people just need more experience, but one thing that they need is something that you've been continuing to echo is an open mind to trying and seeing new things and techniques, because those things might open up something that they could potentially be able to understand about people's bodies and see a new through line that they can't necessarily explain or that they don't see in textbooks.
Sure. Yeah. The crappy part about that is it typically costs a lot of money because you're bouncing from practitioner to practitioner. And what I see a lot of times is people get buyer's fatigue, right? Like they'll ask, you know, how much is this session going to cost me? And I tell them and they're just like, I know. The time, it took me 14 years to get out of my knee pain. And towards the tail end, when I had a good paying job, I was just throwing money at people. And I spent probably $30,000 to $40,000 within a 3 to 4 year period trying to get my knee pain to go away by paying people to do it for me. And they didn't have the answer. Mm-hmm. So finally I broke down one day and I was like, you know what? If they can't figure it out, it means that I have to. And, you know, I was 30 years old and I was not ready to hang up the old barbell and the old bike and not run anymore because of how much pain I had. So a lot of times too, you know, you're going to be driven by your want to get out of pain. Okay. Where a lot of people, they will enjoy being in pain subconsciously because they're no longer challenged. Okay. So I see a lot of people, you know, they're going to keep on talking like, hey, yeah, man, I'm going to come in and see you. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you know, I'm ready whenever you are. And it's just kind of like, I realize you're too comfortable. You know, you want that out. If there's something that's going to challenge you, I can't do that because of my back. I can't go on that fun skiing vacation because of my knee. Okay. And you get stuck in that victim rut. Okay. Until finally something knocks you out of it. And it typically, something has to happen like 3 or 4 times for you to get the message and be like, okay, I really need to get better. You know? So there are some people that have pain and will do anything to get out of it no matter what. And then other people that are in pain and they just talk a good game because they kind of like this. I don't really have to grow in life anymore. Code of the Extraordinary Mind, Vishen Lakhiani, he talked about how 96% of people, not 96% of the population, they're stuck in a victim mentality. This was done to me. I'm this way because of this.
Yeah, but.
I mean, you know, you said your show or your cooking show. You said we're really just trying to take excuses away.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times people that I work with, they will refer somebody to me. And then 6-7 weeks later, they'd be like, hey, did so-and-so ever give you a call? And I'm like, no. And they're like, I gave your number to them weeks ago. Like they are telling me that they're in so much pain constantly, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like people will get really upset. And I'll put my hand on their shoulder. I'm like, it's okay. Like when they're ready, they'll come. But they're constantly complaining. they're just talking a good game. That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. They are stuck in that victim mentality where it's kind of like comfortable to be in that little bubble where people don't expect too much from them, you know? And like, if there's anything that we've seen with all the stimulus the government has been giving out, people just want to be taken care of, right? It takes a very different mentality to either be hurt and like, I'm going to live through this, or to be so hurt where you want to keep on doing something else, right? So now the pain is creating more pain from you not being able to do something, where you're going to say, I'm going to figure out till the, you know, the ends of the earth what is going on with my body because I want to live.
My nephew had a lot of pain and he could barely walk. He's only like 10, I think. My nephew Lachlan, and then you happen to be here. You happen to be in town, and so I was like, "Well, let me see what we can do." And I brought him in, and you basically fixed him in, just a couple hours, really.
What did you notice? What was it that you noticed? Like,
left adductor and hamstring complex was really, really tight. Left glute, and then he had a high right shoulder.
He couldn't. He was walking with his arm behind his back, and he was like, he's 10. He's a little kid. He can run around and do all. He's a pretty good swimmer and stuff, and he just was like hobbling around. It was kind of sad to see, but he was only like that just real briefly, and then we brought him to Chris over here, and Chris gave him the old Mr. Miyagi thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So very, very similar to your case. Yours was more linear. Yours was right hamstring going up into the right side back.
mm-hmm.
He had an X pattern issue. So his left hamstring glute complex and adductor complex was all tight and rotating his foot outward. And that was creating a problem up the right side back into his shoulder. So the focal point was halfway between. And here's the thing is, nobody wakes up and calls into work saying my glute is in pain, right? The body is going to go to an area that's going to be detrimental to movement for the most part, okay? Back pain right now, I believe, is a $100 billion a year industry. It's $30 billion in cost and treatment, okay? And then it's another 30 to 40 billion in lost production. And then it's another 30 billion in lost wages, something like that, okay? So, it's pretty considerable, and people will call up and say, boss, I can't come in today. I'm in bed, can't move, my back hurts, right? But then I work with people like that, and it's a glute or it's a hamstring, right? Or their structure is a little bit out of whack, like Andrew. And you just, a well-placed baseball bat in that left trap, and all of a sudden he's right as the rain, just walking around, loving life again.
Yeah. I'm curious about this, like, in your book, the Back Pain Bible, you have a whole section on feet. And in powerlifting, we see a lot of people who are walking with duck feet.
Yep.
Their feet are both facing out, or one foot is facing out, or it's just, it doesn't seem that great for walking or lifting. Now, if somebody's walking around and their feet are dysfunctional, and we've been learning about feet for a while now, like we've made a big difference for ourselves, what are some things that people can do? And by the way, guys, you need to get that book, Back Pain Bible. It's very fucking good.
Thank you. I'm looking at rolling the glutes. And then something very easy to start off with would probably be the 75, 90, 120 stretch that I have in there.
Mm-hmm.
You want to start off with a 75. When you can get 15 repetitions, your head down close to your foot, then you can move out to the 90. When you get about 15 repetitions down in the 90, then you can move out to the 120. But it's baby steps, right?
Yeah.
Pressure first, and then we want to do the stretching after.
Gotcha.
So that's something really, really easy. Doesn't require any education, barely any money, $3 for a lacrosse ball,
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit of your time, probably 5 minutes. Roll on it for 3 minutes, find a tight side, okay? Roll on it for 3 to 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and then do some stretching for about 2 minutes right after.
And what are some things that you personally do to like take care of your feet and make sure that your feet are themselves?
So I know that you guys had, obviously promote this and seen it too, especially when I'm warming up, it's going to be barefoot. I have the Vibram shoes, the five finger,
Yeah.
the 5-toe shoes. I will sprint in those. I will run some medium to long distance in them every once in a while, maybe like once or twice a month. Okay. I will also roll my feet with a lacrosse ball. I'll also roll my feet on a barbell. Okay. You do it on the barbell and it's like 10xing what the lacrosse ball is doing.
I'm going to go do that.
Every once in a while, get a golf ball in there, something like that. And then there are really fantastic things that something like an Epsom salt bath can do if you're doing it just for your feet. Okay. I recommend just doing it for the whole body. But if you're doing it just for your feet, you know, you're looking at Chinese medicine once again, drawing toxins out and whatnot from the bottom of the feet, because that's kind of an endpoint in the human body. So I think that magnesium baths, the Epsom salt baths, are heavily underutilized. Heavily underutilized. So cheap. You can get a bag, like a 5-pound bag off Amazon for like $9. Okay. And once again, it comes down to taking care of yourself. Okay. We're not taught how to take care of ourselves. And it's almost that you're being called selfish when you do. Okay. Or people don't understand that. So I went to Machu Picchu in 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. Okay. Our guide, Dominguito, great guy. Okay. 27 years old, so much wisdom already. We sat down at the campfire the first night and he asked us a question. He goes, who's the most important person in your life? And you know, people are, oh, my mother and my father, oh, my best friend, he's ride or die. And he goes, those are all really great answers, but they're wrong. And he goes, the most important person in your life is you. Because if you're not healthy, your mom's not going to be healthy, or you can't take care of her if something happens and she becomes unhealthy. Okay. If you're not healthy, then, you know, you're not going to be able to hang around with your best friend. Right.
Or
so
your kids.
There's a big difference. Like I almost feel like selfish has a misnomer. You know, it's like if, let's say your mom just came back from surgery on Saturday, okay, and you go and play basketball with the boys Saturday afternoon, even though she needs you to take care of her, that'd be pretty selfish, okay? But it's a little bit different where, let's say your daughter or your son comes running up, Daddy, come play with me right now. Okay, you know what, honey? Give me 5 minutes to roll on my hamstring and my glute, and then I'm going to come and play with you. Okay? Let me take care of myself first, so that way I can always take care of you. Right? And I don't think that that's selfish at all. Right? So if your partner is like, stop rolling on your dang back and get over here and love me, or stop rolling on your back and come over and, you know, come on, the show is starting, I would probably find a new partner. I would eventually be like, you know what, honey, if I can't take care of myself and feel good, then I'm not going to be able to take care of you and the kids. So it's kind of important, you know, but people look at, oh, he's so selfish. He's, you know, he's always rolling on that damn ball. You know, and it becomes kind of obsessive, because when it comes down to it, who doesn't want to feel good? When you feel good, you just want to do good. You're happy.
Yes.
You know, and that was a big reason for writing my books. I don't want to get older and live in a world where people are in more pain, and maybe the valet guy that I drop my car off to, you know, decides to do something to it because he's just having a bad day and he doesn't feel good. You know, so you got to feel good. Then you can go and do good, and you can be good, and you can be happy, right? It takes a very, very different, you got to be like a monk, you know, if you're in uber amounts of pain, but still be laughing and smiling and the life of the party and everything like that, you know? So.
Andrew, take us on out of here, buddy.
I'm just thinking, like, man, how'd you get divorced? My wife said I loved my foam roller more than her, and that was the end. It's like, oh, bummer, dude. All right, thank you everybody for checking out today's episode. Take off your tinfoil caps and drop us a comment down below. And make sure you guys like this episode and subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. Follow the podcast at MB Power Project on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. My Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima. Where you at?
I gotta say again, that book, the Back Pain Bible, really fucking good.
We'll link it. We'll link it down below.
I went through it
Appreciate
in 2 days, so there's a lot of actionable tools in there. But Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Chris, where can they find you and all the stuff that you have, all the stuff you've put out?
So the Back Pain Bible is really like my thesis. It's kind of like my dissertation on everything. Some of the comments that I see for like the knee pain Bible, the shoulder pain Bible, and then the foot and ankle pain Bible, people are like, "This isn't a Bible. It's too small." And I'm like, "Well, everything that you need to know is in there." Okay, it's just kind of like a theme, but to really understand back pain, you have to understand the entire structure because it is the center of the body. It is the support structure and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I go way more in depth into that book. But obviously all my books are on Amazon. Christopher J. Kidawski, if you're going to look up all the books that I have up there. The only other platform that I'm really on besides YouTube, they're both the same name. It's at Rebuilt, RIBYLT. And if you go to my link tree and whatnot, I have all my courses there, especially the one that I'm finishing up called Rebuilding You.
Appreciate you spending so much time with us. You're the first person to come out and spend a whole week with us and to actually like literally put everything into practice. We've had a couple other people have come out. The Go-To guys were really great, and they came out for a handful of days.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a couple other people give us a little bits and tidbits of their practice, but I really commend you on that, and thank you so much for that. It's been amazing. You've helped me a lot, helped my brother a lot, you helped my sister-in-law a lot. You're helping all of our friends, so really, really appreciate that.
It seems I broke the mold.
I think so.
There's a new standard. Everybody else that's coming to the Mark Bell Power Project.
People have to try to measure up to that. So
yeah, like I said throughout the past couple of hours, man. Number one, I mean, it's been my pleasure, and I've had so much gratitude for you guys just being open and really taking in everything that I'm saying. That I don't feel like there's been too much pushback, but I'm never not open to criticism or being like, okay, I didn't feel that, or that seemed like a bunch of BS or whatever. But really, I needed you guys to first feel what I do before you could talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's so much different than what everybody else does, especially starting by working from the inside out. It's not something that you're going to feel in a day or two or even 3. There's a time component to it. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come out for a little bit longer period of time. But really, you guys, you didn't know me. I was recommended by Joel. And for you guys to just be like, absolutely, let's bring them on. It's not like I felt like I owed you, but I wanted to come and just show my appreciation. And how do you do that in this world is through time or through help,
100%.
Because those don't cost anything. I didn't expect anything of you. You're not expecting anything of me. Show up. How can I help? There's very few people that are doing that this day. And if we all did a little bit more of it, it'd be a pretty cool world.
Yeah,
right?
I appreciate you not charging us $500 an hour. On that, Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.